Imagine living each day without the constant weight of anxiety pressing on your chest. Imagine facing life's challenges with calm, with strength, and with a clear mind that does not shake at every little storm. But tell me honestly, how many times have you felt trapped in your own thoughts, worrying about things you cannot change, fearing outcomes that may never even happen? Anxiety steals your time, your peace, and your energy. It keeps you stuck in your head instead of living fully in the present moment. But it doesn't have to control you. The wisdom of the Stoics holds truths that can break this cycle, truths that can help you let go of fear, stop overthinking, and finally breathe with freedom. Today, you're going to discover 12 Stoic truths that will help you rise above anxiety and face life with courage. These are not just ideas to think about. They are tools you can use every single day to take back your mind and your peace. So get ready, because after this video, the way you look at anxiety will never be the same again. Before we start, I want you to make a promise to yourself. Write in the comments, "I choose peace over fear." You won't just be writing words, you'll be creating a new belief inside you. The more you repeat it, the deeper it will sink into your mind, and the more power you will have to act with calm. So, write it now, and let's begin. Number 1. You control your mind, not external events. How many times have you allowed something outside of you to ruin your day? Someone cut you off in traffic, and suddenly your peace vanished. A colleague spoke rudely, and your mind replayed it all day long. Plans fell apart, and you drowned in frustration. But stop and ask yourself, did the event itself truly have the power to harm you, or did you give it that power? Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. The world outside you is beyond your control. People will act as they wish, not as you wish. Circumstances will rise and fall. Fortune will change without warning. You cannot command these things, but what you can always command is your own mind, your judgments, your reactions, your choices. That is where your true freedom lives. Think about it. An insult is nothing but sound waves traveling through the air. Does it contain poison? Does it cut your skin? Number. It becomes harmful only when you let it enter your thoughts, when you repeat it to yourself, when you choose to believe it. The harm is not in the words, but in your interpretation, and interpretation is yours to control. Every day you face two forces, the outer world, which you cannot control, and your inner world, which you can. Anxiety begins when you try to control the outer world, when you demand that people behave a certain way, that life follow your script, that events unfold according to your desires. But this is impossible. The Stoics remind us, to demand control over what is not yours is madness. To master what is yours, your mind, is wisdom. So the next time life frustrates you, pause and ask, is this in my control? If the answer is no, then let it go. If the answer is yes, then act with calm and clarity. That simple shift will save you from endless suffering. Imagine two people caught in the rain. One curses the sky, grows angry, and spends the whole day bitter. The other accepts the rain, finds shelter, and moves on with peace. Same event, different minds. Which one do you want to be? The practice is simple, but not easy. It takes training. Each morning remind yourself, today things will happen outside my control. People may be unjust, circumstances may be hard, but none of it can touch my mind unless I allow it. When you carry this shield of thought, the world loses its power to enslave you. This is not about indifference. It is about strength. It is about refusing to let chaos decide your inner state. The insult, the setback, the failure, they are tests. They ask you, will you give me your peace or will you keep it? The weak hand it over. The strong guard it like treasure. You cannot stop the waves, but you can learn to stand firm. You cannot stop the wind, but you can adjust your sail. You cannot stop people from speaking, but you can decide whether their words mean anything. That choice is yours, and it is the only choice that truly matters. So remember this truth. Control your mind, and you will never be a slave to events. Lose control of your mind, and even the smallest event will enslave you. The world belongs to chaos. Your mind belongs to you. Master it, and you master your life. Number 2. Distinguish between what is in your power and what is not. How much of your suffering comes from chasing things that were never in your control to begin with? You worry about what people think of you, yet you cannot command their thoughts. You stress over outcomes, yet you cannot guarantee how the world will respond. You try to hold the rain back with your hands, and when it slips through your fingers, you feel defeated. But the truth is simple. Peace begins the moment you learn to separate what is yours from what is not. Epictetus, the great Stoic teacher, began his wisdom with this very point. Some things are in our control and others are not. That is the foundation. Without this distinction, you will live as a slave to everything outside of you. But once you see it clearly, you will stop wasting your strength on battles that were never yours to fight. Ask yourself right now, what belongs to me? Your thoughts, your choices, your actions, your character, these are yours. They are fully within your command. But everything else, opinions, praise, insults, weather, fortune, health, even the moment of your death, these are not yours. You may influence them, yes, but you do not control them. To attach your peace to them is to tie yourself to a ship tossed by storms. Think of it this way. If you plant a seed, you can water it, care for the soil, give it sunlight. These actions are in your control. But will the plant grow tall? Will it bloom as you imagine? That is not yours to decide. The weather, the soil, the nature of the seed, all beyond your command. If you tie your happiness to the bloom, you suffer. But if you tie your happiness to the act of planting and caring, you are free. Most people reverse this. They ignore what is theirs and obsess over what is not. They neglect their own mind, but demand control over others. They waste energy on the outcome, but ignore their effort. And then they wonder why they are anxious, angry, or broken. The Stoics would call this madness. So, what is the way forward? Practice the art of letting go. When something troubles you, ask, is this mine? Is this within my control? If yes, then take action with all your strength. If no, then release it, for it was never yours to hold. This is not weakness, it is wisdom. It is strength of the highest kind, the strength to focus only on what belongs to you. Imagine how free you would be if you lived this truth. Someone insults you. Does that belong to you? Number. Their words, their thoughts, their character, that is theirs. What is yours is your response. Choose calm. Choose dignity. The result? Their insult falls flat. A storm arrives. Can you stop it? Number. What is yours? Preparing, protecting, enduring. Do that, and the storm loses its power to crush you. Even death itself, the greatest fear, is not yours to control. You did not choose when you were born, and you will not choose when you leave. But what is yours is how you live the moments between. Waste them in fear, and you die many times before your death. Live them with clarity, and you find freedom no matter when the end comes. The line is clear: what is yours and what is not. Respect that line, protect it, write it on your heart. The one who confuses the two will always suffer. The one who distinguishes them will always be free. So remember this truth. Focus only on what is in your power and release what is not. That is the path to peace. That is the path to strength. And until you learn this, you will always be chained to things you cannot command. But once you do, nothing outside of you will ever have the power to enslave you again. Number 3. Perception shapes reality. Stop and think. Is it the event itself that hurts you, or the way you see it? Two people can face the same hardship, and yet one collapses in despair while the other rises stronger. Why? Because it is not the thing itself that matters. It is the judgment you place upon it. Your perception creates your reality. Marcus Aurelius said, "If you are pained by any external thing, it is not this thing that disturbs you, but your judgment about it." This is the Stoic truth. The world presents you with raw events, neutral and bare. They carry no meaning until your mind assigns one. And once you give them meaning, they shape how you feel, how you act, and what your life becomes. Look at an obstacle. One person sees it and says, "This is unfair. This is the end." Another looks at the same obstacle and says, "This is my chance to grow stronger." Same event, two realities, two lives. Which one will you choose? Your mind is like a lens. If the lens is dirty, scratched, or clouded with fear, everything you see will look distorted. But if the lens is clear, disciplined and trained, you will see things as they truly are. Anxiety grows when you forget this, when you believe your thoughts about reality are reality itself. But they are not. They are only interpretations, and interpretations can be changed. Ask yourself, when something troubles you, what story am I telling myself? Did I fail, or did I learn? Did they reject me, or did life remove what was not meant for me? Did I lose, or was I given the chance to start again? The story you choose shapes your world, and this choice is always yours. Think of the Stoics. They lived under emperors, wars, and exile. They faced sickness, betrayal, and death. Yet they found peace, not because life was gentle, but because they trained their perception. They reminded themselves daily, events are not good or bad, they simply are. It is we who paint them with color. It is we who call them blessing or curse. And because we do, we can choose differently. This does not mean you must pretend pain is pleasant. It means you must see pain for what it is, an experience, a teacher, a chance to practice strength. You cannot always change the outside, but you can always change how you see it, and that changes everything. So how do you practice this? Each time you face something hard, pause and strip it down. Describe it as plainly as you can, without judgment. Not, "This is terrible," but "This is a delay." Not, "This ruins me," but "This is a change of plans." Notice how the weight lessens the moment you remove the story. Then choose a better story, one that empowers instead of weakens you. Perception is power. It can turn setbacks into stepping stones, pain into strength, loss into clarity, or it can turn small troubles into mountains, simple words into wounds, and everyday life into suffering. The choice is yours. Remember this truth. Reality is shaped not by what happens to you, but by how you decide to see it. Train your mind to see clearly, to see calmly, to see with wisdom. Because once you master perception, you master the way you experience the world. And when you master that, nothing outside can ever control your peace again. Number 4. Everything is temporary. Look around you. Every moment you live is already slipping away. The morning sun rises, and before you can hold on to it, the evening comes. A flower blooms in beauty, and soon its petals fall to the ground. Youth fades, health changes, friendships shift, and even the strongest empires crumble. Nothing in this world stays the same. Everything is temporary. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, all things are in a process of change. You are a little soul carrying around a corpse. These words are not meant to depress you. They are meant to set you free. When you understand that everything is temporary, you stop clinging to what you cannot hold. You stop fearing the natural flow of life. You begin to live with clarity, with courage, with appreciation for every fleeting moment. Why do we suffer so much? Because we act as if things will last forever. We expect people never to change, fortunes never to fade, life never to end. Then, when change comes, we feel betrayed, as if nature broke a promise. But nature made no promise. Change is its law. To fight it is to fight reality itself. Think about your own life. How many of your greatest pains eventually softened with time? That heartbreak that once felt unbearable, look at it now. That fear that once kept you awake at night, where is it now? Time has a way of washing everything away, both pain and pleasure. The storm passes, the wound heals, the joy fades, the laughter ends. Nothing stays. Does this mean you should despair? It means you should wake up. If joy is temporary, savor it while it is here. If pain is temporary, endure it, knowing it will pass. If life itself is temporary, then live it fully, without wasting your days in fear and regret. Imagine holding sand in your hand. The tighter you squeeze, the faster it slips through your fingers. That is how life works. The more you cling, the more you suffer. But if you hold it gently, with awareness, you can enjoy it while it lasts. The Stoic does not deny the temporary nature of life. He embraces it. He says, "This too will pass, so let me meet it with dignity." So the next time anxiety grips you, remind yourself, this moment is temporary. The pain will not last forever. The fear will not last forever. Even the storm raging in your mind will pass, like clouds moving across the sky. Why should you give eternal power to something that is only passing through? And the next time joy comes, do not waste it by wishing it would last forever. Instead, be present. Taste it fully. Appreciate it now. Because clinging to it only makes you miss it while it's here. Gratitude comes from knowing that nothing is permanent, so everything is precious. Even you are temporary. One day, your breath will stop, and your body will return to the earth. But this truth is not meant to paralyze you. It is meant to liberate you. Once you accept that everything is temporary, you stop fearing the end, because you know the end was always part of the design. Remember this, life is not about holding on forever. It is about living wisely in the time you have. Joy and pain will come and go. Success and failure will rise and fall. People will enter your life and leave. You cannot stop this, but you can decide how you meet it. Meet it with peace, with courage, with gratitude. Everything is temporary. Let that truth guide you, and you will no longer be a slave to fear or loss. Instead, you will be free, free to live, free to love, free to let go when the time comes. Number 5. Discomfort is part of growth. Think about the strongest version of yourself. Did that strength come from easy days, from comfort, from everything going your way? Or did it come from trials, from pain, from pushing through challenges you once thought you could never endure? The truth is simple. Growth and comfort cannot live together. If you want to grow, you must be willing to be uncomfortable. Epictetus, once a slave who became a great teacher, knew this truth well. He said, "Difficulties show what men are." Life tests you not to break you, but to reveal you. Without struggle, you stay weak. Without discomfort, you stay the same. The weight that feels heavy today is the same weight that makes you stronger tomorrow. Look at nature. A seed must break open in darkness before it grows into a tree. A chick must struggle against the shell before it can fly. The body must tear and repair its muscles before it gains strength. Growth always demands discomfort. Why should it be different for the soul? The problem is not discomfort itself. The problem is our belief that discomfort is a signal to stop. We think, this is hard, so something must be wrong. But the Stoics remind us, hard does not mean wrong. Hard often means you are exactly where you need to be. Anxiety, fear, and pain are not enemies to run from. They are signs that growth is near. Think about your own life. The times you grew most, were they easy? Or were they moments of struggle, of loss, of facing challenges you never asked for? You survived them, and now you are stronger, wiser, more resilient. The comfort you once craved could never have given you that. So the next time you feel discomfort, whether it's waking up early, working on something difficult, or facing a fear, don't run. Instead, tell yourself, this is growth in progress. The burn in your muscles, the stretch of your mind, the ache in your heart. These are not punishments. They are teachers. They are shaping you into someone greater than you were yesterday. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. That means the very thing you are resisting, the very discomfort you want to avoid, is the doorway to your growth. To avoid it is to avoid your own potential. To embrace it is to step into your strength. Think of it like fire. Fire burns, yes, but it also refines. Gold becomes pure only after it has faced the heat. In the same way, your character becomes strong only after it has faced discomfort. Without it, you remain soft, untested, fragile. With it, you become unshakable. So how do you train this? Start small. Choose discomfort on purpose. Take the cold shower. Wake up earlier than you want to. Say no to the easy distraction. Push yourself when your mind says quit. Each time you do, you are building a muscle of resilience, teaching yourself that discomfort is not the enemy. It is the path. And when life throws bigger challenges at you, the loss, the betrayal, the unexpected change, you will already be trained. You will not collapse because you know discomfort is not here to destroy me. It is here to grow me. Remember this truth. Comfort keeps you the same. Discomfort transforms you. The pain you feel today is the strength you carry tomorrow. Do not curse it. Do not run from it. Meet it with courage, because discomfort is not a barrier. It is the bridge to your growth. Number 6. Accept fate. Amor fati. Life will not always unfold according to your plans. You may dream of one path, and life may push you down another. You may hope for ease, and life may give you struggle. You may pray for sunshine, and life may send storms. The Stoics did not waste their energy wishing the world were different. They practiced amor fati, the love of fate. Not just accepting what happens, but embracing it as if they had chosen it themselves. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "A blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it." That is amor fati. Whatever life throws at you, joy, pain, success, failure, you take it and make it fuel. Instead of saying, "Why me?" you say, "Yes, me. This too is part of my path." Think about it. How many times did life not go your way, but later you realized it was exactly what you needed? The job you didn't get opened the door to something greater. The heartbreak that crushed you taught you strength and clarity. The failure you feared became the foundation of wisdom. At the time, you resisted. But with distance, you saw that fate was not against you. It was guiding you. Amor fati is the courage to trust that truth even before hindsight proves it. We waste so much life fighting what already is. We resist. We complain. We curse reality as if it should have been different. But tell me, has resistance ever changed fate? Has anger ever stopped what has already happened? The event is here. The only question is, how will you meet it? With bitterness or with acceptance? With despair or with strength? The Stoics teach us that peace comes not from controlling fate, but from aligning with it. To accept fate is not weakness, it is the deepest strength. It is saying, whatever comes, I will not only endure it, I will embrace it. I will love it, because it is mine. Think of a soldier who only accepts the easy orders and refuses the hard ones. He is not truly loyal, but the soldier who accepts every order with discipline proves his devotion. In the same way, you prove your devotion to life not by taking only the joys, but by embracing the hardships too. Amor fati does not mean you stop acting. It does not mean you sit back passively and do nothing. No, the Stoics acted with courage, with effort, with discipline, but once the outcome came, they did not curse it. They said, "This is my path. This is my training. This is mine to love." So, how do you practice this? Each time something happens that you did not want, pause and say, amor fati, love of fate. Let those words remind you that this moment is not your enemy, it is your teacher. Even if it is bitter now, it may be the seed of something greater. And even if it breaks you, let it break you into someone stronger. Imagine the freedom if you lived this way. Nothing could defeat you. Every outcome would serve you. Every twist in the road would strengthen you. You would no longer say, "Why did this happen to me?" You would say, "This happened for me, and I will use it." That is the spirit of amor fati. Remember this truth. You cannot control fate, but you can control your embrace of it. Love what happens, not because it is always pleasant, but because it is always yours. Say yes to life, all of it, the joy, the sorrow, the triumph, the loss. And when you do, you will discover that fate was never your enemy. It was always your path. Number 7. Death is natural. Look around you. Everything that lives will one day die. The tree that now stands tall will one day fall. The bird that sings in the morning will one day fall silent. The body you walk in, the faces you love, even the sun and stars above, all will pass. Death is not a mistake. It is not a punishment. It is nature. It is the law that makes life possible. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, It is not death that a man should fear, but he should fear never beginning to live. The problem is not death itself. The problem is our refusal to face it. We live as if we are immortal, wasting time on trivial things, fearing the inevitable, pretending the end will not come. But tell me, has fear ever stopped death? Has denial ever added a single day? Death is not against you. Death is part of you. From the moment you were born, death has walked beside you. Every day lived is a day closer to the end. But this is not reason for despair. It is reason for urgency. It is reason to live fully, to love deeply, to waste no time. Think of nature. The flower blooms, then fades. The fruit ripens, then falls. The seasons come and go. None of this is tragic. It is simply the rhythm of life. Why then should we see our own passing as tragedy? You are part of nature, not separate from it. What happens to every living thing will happen to you. To fight this is to fight the very order of the universe. The Stoics practiced remembering death, memento mori, not to be morbid, but to be awake, to walk through life with the awareness that each breath may be your last, and in that awareness to live with clarity, without wasting what is fleeting. If you remembered death daily, would you waste so much time in anger, in gossip, in fear? Or would you hold each moment as precious, knowing it will never return? When you accept death as natural, anxiety loses its grip. You no longer tremble at the thought of the end because you see it for what it is, the completion of a cycle. Just as you did not fear not existing before you were born, why should you fear not existing after you die? It is the same silence, the same peace. So how should you live with this truth? Live as if every day were a gift, because it is. Live as if every word you speak could be your last, so speak with honesty and kindness. Live as if every embrace could be the final one, so embrace fully. Do not postpone life, thinking you have endless time. You do not. Death waits, and it could come at any moment. Let that thought sharpen you, not paralyze you. Think of courage. To fear death is to fear life, because death is woven into life. To accept death is to be free, to love, to act, to face every day without chains. The Stoics faced death with calm, saying, "If it is time, I go. If it is not time, I continue." Either way, they were at peace. Remember this truth. Death is not the enemy. Fear of death is the enemy. Death is nature, and to accept it is to live in harmony with the whole. Do not waste your life fleeing from what you cannot escape. Instead, use the time you have. Live now, live fully, and when death comes, greet it as an old friend, for it was always part of your journey. Number 8. Desire less, live freely. Why do you feel restless? Why do you feel chained? It is not because life withholds what you need. It is because you have convinced yourself you need more than you truly do. The more you desire, the more you suffer. The more you demand from the world, the more power you give it to control you. Freedom is not found in getting everything you want. Freedom is found in wanting less. Epictetus said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control." And what lies beyond our control? The endless desires of the human heart, wealth, status, luxury, praise. These things are not truly in your hands. Even if you gain them, they can be taken away. To build your happiness upon them is to build a house on sand. Think of desire as chains. The more you crave, the tighter they wrap around you. You want wealth, and now you are a slave to fear of losing it. You want approval, and now you are a slave to every opinion around you. You want pleasure, and now you are a slave to the craving that never ends. Desire promises freedom, but delivers captivity. The Stoics saw through this illusion. They taught that the one who desires less is the richest of all. Why? Because nothing can be taken from him. He already has enough. He lives simply, with gratitude, with peace. He enjoys what he has instead of crying for what he lacks. He drinks water with the same joy another drinks wine, because he knows contentment does not come from the cup, but from the mind. Ask yourself, how much do you truly need? A little food to sustain you, a little shelter to protect you, a little clothing to cover you. Beyond that, everything else is extra. Yet you chase endlessly, as if one more possession, one more recognition, one more pleasure will finally satisfy you. But has it ever? Each time you get what you wanted, desire soon whispers again, more. And so the chain tightens. Look at those who have everything. Are they always at peace? Or do they crave more still? Riches, fame, power. These are no guarantee of freedom. Often, they are prisons dressed in gold. Meanwhile, the one who has little but needs little is truly free. He walks light, unburdened by endless wants. Nothing can enslave him because nothing has a hold on him. So how do you live this truth? Begin by practicing gratitude. Each morning, remind yourself of what you already have. Food, air, breath, a mind to think, a body to act. These are treasures. Then practice discipline. When you feel desire rising, pause and ask, do I need this, or have I convinced myself I do? If it is not needed, release it. Teach your soul to hunger less, and you will find it starves for nothing. The Stoics did not hate pleasure or reject comfort. They simply refused to be owned by it. If it came, they accepted it with calm. If it left, they let it go without pain. That is freedom, not in having everything, but in needing almost nothing. Remember this truth: the fewer your desires, the lighter your chains. Desire less, and the world cannot enslave you. Desire less, and you will walk freely, calmly, gratefully. That is true wealth. That is true freedom. Number 9. Virtue is the only true good. Ask yourself, what is the highest thing a human being can achieve? Is it wealth? No, for wealth can corrupt and vanish in an instant. Is it fame? No, for the crowd is fickle and forgets quickly. Is it pleasure? No, for pleasure fades as soon as it arrives. All these things depend on chance, on fortune, on what lies outside your control. But there is one thing that cannot be taken from you, one thing that belongs wholly to you, one thing that is truly good: virtue. The Stoics taught that virtue, living with wisdom, courage, justice, and self-discipline, is the only thing that makes a life truly good. Everything else is indifferent. Wealth in the hands of a fool brings ruin. In the hands of a virtuous person, it can serve. Fame without virtue corrupts. Fame with virtue can inspire. Pleasure without virtue enslaves. Pleasure with virtue can be enjoyed with balance. Do you see the pattern? It is not the external thing that matters. It is the character of the one who holds it. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, just that you do the right thing. The rest doesn't matter. This is the core of Stoicism. The world may throw fortune or misfortune at you, but your worth is measured only by how you live, how you act, how you uphold virtue in the face of all things. That is the only thing that is truly yours, and the only thing that defines a good life. Think about this. A person who has wealth but no virtue, is he truly rich? Or is he poor in spirit, enslaved by greed? A person who enjoys endless pleasures but no discipline, is she truly happy? Or is she trapped in endless craving? A person who is praised by the world but lacks justice, is he truly great? Or is he hollow, wearing a mask? Without virtue, all else rots. With virtue, even poverty, pain, or obscurity can shine with dignity. Virtue is not a word for saints or philosophers. It is practical. It is how you act in the smallest things. Do you speak truth when lying would be easier? That is virtue. Do you stay calm when anger tempts you? That is virtue. Do you treat others with fairness, even when you gain nothing? That is virtue. Each act of virtue builds a life of strength, a character unshakable by fate. This is why the Stoics said virtue is enough for happiness. Imagine losing everything: money, possessions, status, even health. If you still have virtue, you still have yourself. You can still live with dignity, with honor, with peace. But imagine gaining everything the world can give and losing virtue. Then you have nothing, for you have lost yourself. So how do you train this? Each day, measure yourself not by what you gained or lost, but by whether you lived with virtue. Did you act with wisdom? Did you face fear with courage? Did you treat others with justice? Did you master your desires with discipline? If yes, then you lived well, no matter what fortune brought. If no, then no wealth, no fame, no comfort can make up for it. Remember this truth. Virtue is the only true good. It is the root of freedom, the foundation of peace, the measure of a life well lived. Everything else, fortune, power, pleasure, is secondary, fragile, fleeting. But virtue is eternal. Hold fast to it, and no storm can break you, no loss can ruin you, no fate can enslave you. Virtue alone is enough. Number 10. The present moment is sufficient. How much of your life have you wasted living anywhere but here? You dwell on the past, replaying mistakes, reliving pain, wishing you could change what is already gone. You leap into the future, worrying about what may happen, fearing shadows that don't yet exist. And all the while, the present, the only moment that is truly yours, slips away. The Stoics knew this trap well, and they taught the simple but powerful truth. The present moment is sufficient. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, confine yourself to the present. Why? Because the past no longer exists, and the future has not yet arrived. The present is all you ever truly have. When you live in regret, you are fighting with a ghost. When you live in anxiety, you are wrestling with a dream. But when you live in the present, you are alive, grounded, and free. Ask yourself, when you suffer, is it usually because of what is happening right now, or because of what your mind is adding to it? The pain of the present is often small. It is the mind that multiplies it by dragging in the past or projecting into the future. The task in front of you is rarely unbearable. It is your thought of, I can't handle this forever, that crushes you. But forever is not yours to carry. Only now is. Think of a soldier in battle. If he thinks only of the next step, the next move, he endures. But if he thinks of the entire war, he collapses under the weight of what is not yet real. The same is true for you. Life is not to be carried all at once. It is to be lived moment by moment, breath by breath. The present is sufficient because it is all that exists. Even when hardship comes, the question is never, can I survive the rest of my life like this? The question is always, can I endure this moment? And the answer is almost always yes. You can endure this breath. You can endure this hour. You can endure this day. And by enduring one present moment at a time, you endure everything. Gratitude also lives in the present. Anxiety says, what if I lose what I have? Regret says, I should have appreciated it more. But gratitude says, it is here now. I see it. I value it. That is enough. The meal before you, the friend beside you, the air you breathe, these are gifts, but only if you notice them now. So how do you practice this? Begin by catching your wandering mind. When you find yourself trapped in yesterday or lost in tomorrow, bring yourself back. Look around. Name what you see. Feel your breath. Ask yourself, what can I do right now in this moment? Then do it. That is all that is required of you. The Stoics were not dreamers of far-off futures. They were realists of the present. They faced war, exile, loss, and death, not by drowning in fear of what might come, but by focusing on the duty and the strength required in the moment at hand. That is why they remained calm in chaos, because they lived where life truly is, here, now. Remember this truth. The present moment is sufficient. It holds all the power you need, all the strength you require, all the peace you seek. Do not waste it by living in times that do not exist. Live now, act now, breathe now, because this moment is not only sufficient, it is all you will ever truly have. Number 11. You suffer more in imagination than in reality. How many times have you tortured yourself with fears that never came true? How many nights have you lost sleep, replaying scenarios in your head that never became real? How many moments of peace have you destroyed by imagining disasters that never arrived? Be honest. The majority of your suffering has not come from reality itself, but from your mind's imagination. Seneca said it clearly. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Think about it. Reality is usually bearable. You face a task, a challenge, or even a loss, and you endure it. The mind, however, is what multiplies the pain. It drags you into 100 possible futures, each one darker than the last. It whispers, what if you fail? What if they reject you? What if everything collapses? And though none of this has happened, you suffer as if it already has. Anxiety is born here, in the imagination. The event itself may never come, but your fear of it steals your peace today. You die 1,000 deaths in your mind before you face the one real challenge in front of you. And when that challenge finally arrives, it is often smaller than what you imagined. Yet you suffered 10 times more in thought than you ever did in reality. Ask yourself, how often has the worst-case scenario truly happened? Almost never. And even when it did, were you not stronger than you expected? Did you not endure? You see, reality is rarely as cruel as imagination. Your mind paints monsters larger than life, but when you finally face them, they are shadows, loud but hollow. The Stoics knew this, and that is why they trained themselves to focus on what is, not what might be. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, today I shall meet interference, ingratitude, insolence, disloyalty, ill will, and selfishness. He did not imagine endless horrors beyond his control. He accepted the possible difficulties with calm, prepared to face them as they came, nothing more. So how do you practice this? The next time your mind begins to spiral into what-ifs, stop and ask, is this happening now, or is this only imagination? If it is not happening now, then let it go. Focus only on the present task, the present breath, the present choice. That is all that is real. You must also learn to see fear for what it is, a story. Your mind is the author, but you do not have to believe every page it writes. When fear rises, rewrite the story. Instead of "what if I fail," say "what if I grow?" Instead of "what if they laugh," say "what if I inspire?" Instead of "what if I lose everything," say "what if I gain strength from whatever happens?" By shifting perception, you weaken fear's grip. Do not mistake this for ignoring reality. The Stoics faced reality with open eyes. If danger comes, prepare. If hardship comes, endure. But do not suffer for battles that have not arrived. Do not let your mind drag you into wars against shadows. Remember this truth: you suffer more in imagination than in reality. Free yourself from the prison of what if. Live only in what is. When the future comes, meet it with strength. Until then, do not waste your life fighting ghosts. Reality is enough. Your imagination does not need to make it heavier. Number 12. You are part of a larger whole. Look at the stars. Look at the trees, the rivers, the sky above you. Look at the people around you, strangers, family, friends, even those who oppose you. All of it is connected. All of it is part of one great whole. And you are not separate from it. You are a piece of the universe, a thread in the fabric of life. To forget this is to feel lost. To remember it is to find peace. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "What harms the hive harms the bee." He understood that each of us is tied to something greater. Just as the bee cannot live apart from the hive, you cannot live apart from the whole. You may think you are independent, that your actions are yours alone, but every word, every choice, every act ripples outward, touching lives you cannot see. You breathe because the trees give you air. You eat because the earth provides food. You live because countless others play their part. You are not alone. You are part of the whole. Think about the anxiety you often carry. Where does it come from? Much of it comes from thinking too much about yourself, your problems, your image, your wants. The Stoics knew this. They reminded themselves, "I was not born to live only for myself. I was born to live in harmony with the world." When you see yourself as part of something larger, your worries shrink. The weight of me dissolves into we. This does not mean you are unimportant. It means your importance comes from your role within the greater whole. Just as a hand serves the body, your life serves the world. If the hand were to say, "I act only for myself," it would destroy both itself and the body. But when it serves the body, it finds its true purpose. In the same way, when you act only for selfish desire, you feel empty. But when you live with justice, with kindness, with service, you find meaning, because you are fulfilling your role in the larger whole. Ask yourself, what kind of part will I be? Will I be a healthy part, serving the whole with justice, courage, and wisdom? Or will I be a diseased part, poisoning the whole with greed, cruelty, and selfishness? The choice is always yours. This truth also frees you from loneliness. You are not an isolated fragment, drifting in chaos. You are connected to nature, to humanity, to the universe itself. The same fire that burns in the stars burns in you. The same laws that move the planets move your body. The same reason that guides others guides you. When you feel small, remember, you are part of the whole. When you feel alone, remember, you belong to something vast. So how do you live this truth? Start by seeing others not as obstacles, but as partners in the same journey. The rude stranger, the difficult colleague, even your enemy, they are parts of the same whole as you. Treat them with justice, not because they always deserve it, but because justice is your role. Next, practice gratitude for the countless unseen parts of the whole that support you. The farmer who grew your food, the worker who built your shelter, the countless lives that make your life possible. Gratitude reminds you of your place in the web. Finally, when fate brings hardship, remind yourself, this too is part of the whole. Just as the body sometimes must endure pain to heal, so too the universe sometimes gives you trials for reasons larger than you can see. Trust the order of the whole, even when you do not understand it. Remember this truth. You are part of a larger whole. To forget this is to live small, selfish, and lost. To remember it is to live with meaning, with peace, with connection to everything around you. You are not alone. You never were. You are a thread in the great fabric of life, necessary, purposeful, eternal in your place within the whole. Let's get much more deeper. Most of us are haunted by the same quiet question. Why does life feel so loud, so fast, so chaotic, and yet so empty? We chase goals, approval, status, and somehow we still lie awake at night, overwhelmed, unfulfilled, spinning. But 2,000 years ago, one man ruled the most powerful empire in the world, and instead of chasing the noise, he sat in silence and asked himself better questions. His name was Marcus Aurelius, and what he discovered alone in a war tent, facing death, betrayal, and grief, could still change your life today. That's not philosophy class. That's survival. That's Stoicism. Meditations isn't just an old book. It's a blueprint for how to stay human when the world is trying to make you anything but. When Marcus wrote those words, he wasn't trying to be remembered. He was trying to hold on to his own sanity, his own goodness, in the middle of pain, politics, and pressure most of us can't even fathom. And the crazy part? What he figured out back then applies to everything we're still struggling with now. So, if you've ever felt like you're trying to hold it all together in a world that won't stop falling apart, this is for you. Not because Stoicism is some trendy self-help hack, but because it's real, it's raw, and it's built for people like us, people who are tired of being reactive, tired of chasing meaning, and finally ready to create it. Marcus Aurelius didn't write meditations for an audience. He wasn't hoping for fame, followers, or a spot on a bestseller list. He wasn't building a brand. He was writing to himself, quietly, privately, honestly, and that's exactly why it cuts deeper than most books ever could. It wasn't edited for public approval. It wasn't shaped to impress scholars or flatter emperors. It was a man alone with his thoughts, trying to hold himself together in a world that kept trying to pull him apart. In that brutal honesty, we find something rare, truth that hasn't been diluted by ego. He wasn't trying to sound wise. He was trying to stay decent. He was trying to remind himself how to respond when the world disappointed him, how to remain calm when others lost their temper, how to hold on to virtue when it would have been easier to give in to rage, bitterness, or despair. That's what makes meditations feel so alive. It doesn't talk at you. It whispers with you. It walks alongside your worst days and offers you something no lecture ever could. Understanding. It doesn't pretend things are easy, it just insists they're worth enduring. You read it, and you don't see a marble statue of a perfect man. You see someone struggling, a ruler facing plagues, wars, betrayals, burying multiple children, losing his wife, and still trying to get up in the morning and act with dignity. He writes things like, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive." But you know from the tone he's probably writing that because he doesn't feel like getting out of bed. He's coaching himself, not preaching to you. And somehow that hits harder than all the polished advice in the world. That's the strange paradox of meditations. It was never meant to be shared, and yet that's what makes it so shareable. Its power lies in its rawness. Its unpolished nature is what gives it polish in a deeper sense. Because it's not afraid to look messy, it feels clean. Because it's not performative, it's profound. You don't feel like you're reading a philosopher on a pedestal. You feel like you're reading a man sitting in a war tent, holding a pen with one hand and holding back grief with the other. Maybe that's why, after all these years, it still resonates. Because in a world addicted to appearance, to performance, to pretending, Marcus shows us what it looks like to be real. He writes, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." That line alone has outlived centuries of political theory, moral essays, and religious sermons, not because it's perfectly worded, but because it's painfully honest. It gets under your skin and asks, are you being the person you keep talking about becoming? Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But to do that, you have to first confront the parts of yourself you'd rather hide." That's what Marcus was doing. He was confronting his ego, his anger, his fear of death, his frustration with others. And in doing so, he was doing something many of us avoid, facing the truth without flinching. That's not weakness, that's courage. And that's why Meditations endures, because it models a kind of strength that doesn't come from conquest, but from inner clarity. There's something deeply human about reading the words of a Roman emperor who admits he loses his temper, who reminds himself not to crave applause, who struggles with ambition and grief just like the rest of us. It reminds you that titles and power don't protect anyone from the human condition. Aristotle said, "Knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom." Marcus took that seriously. Every page is an attempt to know himself better so that he could lead better, love better, live better. That kind of self-awareness is timeless, and yet it's more than just introspection. It's discipline. He's not journaling to vent. He's writing to train his mind, to remind himself of the kind of man he wants to be. That's why the book returns to the same themes again and again. Control your emotions. Don't seek praise. Remember death. Serve the common good. These weren't philosophical decorations. They were guardrails. They were lifelines. They were a code he could return to when everything else fell apart. Plato wrote that the first and best victory is to conquer self. Marcus lived that battle every day. You can feel it in the repetition, the constant looping back to the same reminders. Because when life keeps hitting you, you don't need a new idea. You need to remember what you already know. He was teaching himself how to stay rooted, how to keep his footing, how to not be swept away by the flood of chaos that comes for all of us sooner or later. This is where the magic happens. Because even though Meditations was written for one man, it ends up being for everyone. Why? Because it's not trying to impress anyone. It's not pretending to have all the answers. It's not afraid to say, I'm still learning. And in that vulnerability, we see ourselves. We see our own attempts to grow, our own failures to live up to our ideals, and we realize we're not alone. That realization matters because in today's world, we're drowning in information but starving for wisdom. We scroll endlessly, consume constantly, but rarely pause to reflect. Marcus reminds us to slow down, to think, to choose, to live on purpose, not just on autopilot. Socrates once said, "The unexamined life is not worth living," but Marcus shows us what the examined life actually looks like. It's not glamorous. It's not perfect. It's a daily effort to stay aligned with what matters. And what mattered to Marcus? Not wealth, not legacy, not comfort. What mattered was character, integrity, compassion, resilience. He wasn't trying to be remembered, he was trying to be useful. And that distinction between chasing attention and offering value is what separates wisdom from noise. You don't need a take. That might sound strange in a world that runs on opinions, but it's true. You don't have to weigh in on every headline, every debate, every drama. You don't need to comment, post, argue, or declare where you stand every time the world offers you a spotlight. Marcus Aurelius lived in a world full of political tension, betrayal, war, and social division. And even then, he knew the real power is in knowing when not to speak. He wrote, "You always have the option of having no opinion. There is never a need to get worked up or to trouble your soul about things you can't control." That's more than just advice. It's a strategy. It's a form of psychological self-defense. Because every time you respond to something that doesn't need your energy, you hand over a piece of your mind. You give away focus. You lose control of your inner world. We live in a time where not reacting is treated like ignorance. Stay silent. You must not care. Don't post your take. You must not be paying attention. But Marcus wasn't trying to appear informed. He was trying to be free. And freedom, in the Stoic sense, isn't about doing whatever you want. It's about not being pulled by every passing emotion, every noise, every impulse to react. Think about the pressure we feel to respond to everything around us. Something goes viral, and there's this instant urge. What do I think about it? Do I agree or disagree? Am I on the right side of this? But that pressure comes with a cost. It costs you clarity. It costs you peace. And more importantly, it distracts you from the only thing you can truly control, your own behavior. Carl Jung once said, "Where wisdom reigns, there is no conflict between thinking and feeling." But that harmony only happens when we pause long enough to observe our own mind before jumping in. Not every thought is worth expressing. Not every issue needs your take. And not every moment requires you to take a stand, especially when that stand is based more on fear of judgment than actual conviction. This isn't about apathy. It's about discernment. Marcus wasn't passive. He was deliberate. He knew how to filter what entered his consciousness. He trained himself to recognize which things deserved his energy and which were just noise. Because noise can feel urgent. It wants your attention. It begs for a reaction, but it rarely offers anything in return. Wisdom, on the other hand, waits. It observes. It sees the storm, but doesn't step into it unless it's necessary. That question, "Is this worth my peace?" could save you hours of stress every week. You see a post online. It bothers you. You feel your fingers itching to type. But wait, ask the question, is this argument worth your clarity? Will this comment actually bring understanding or just more division? We've been trained to think that engagement equals value, that if you're not actively responding, you're irrelevant. But that mindset is rooted in fear. Fear of being overlooked, fear of being excluded, fear of being wrong. Stoicism teaches us that relevance isn't about being loud, it's about being centered. When you choose not to weigh in, something unexpected happens. You start noticing more. You hear what people actually mean, not just what they say. You catch the patterns behind the problems. You begin to respond from wisdom instead of emotion. That's not detachment, that's awareness. It's the ability to sit in silence and listen to life before adding your own voice to the mix. Silence can feel uncomfortable at first, especially when everyone else is shouting. But give it time. Let it deepen. Let it become your default mode, observing first, then choosing. And not choosing by impulse, but by value. What's important to you? What do you stand for? What matters when the noise fades? Marcus wasn't trying to escape life. He was trying to engage with it more wisely. He knew that the mind is like a city. It needs gates. Not every voice deserves entry. Not every opinion deserves attention. Not every emotion needs a reaction. And this mental gatekeeping, this choice to pause, is what creates inner stability. It's easy to mistake silence for indifference, but the Stoics saw silence as strength. They understood that not all battles are worth fighting. Some are distractions dressed as purpose. Some are emotional traps. Some are just chaos looking for company. And if you're not careful, you become part of the noise you were trying to escape. Think about how much energy we waste trying to defend our identity, trying to explain ourselves, trying to prove we're good, moral, thoughtful, smart. But here's a hard truth. The people who already believe in you don't need convincing. And the people who are committed to misunderstanding you won't be swayed by any argument. So what if you stop trying? What if you let your actions be your defense? What if you let your peace speak for itself? There's a story about Plato being slandered by someone in public. A friend urged him to respond, to defend himself. Plato calmly replied, "I will live in such a way that no one will believe him." That's the essence of Stoicism: integrity, not argument; action, not opinion; character, not clapbacks. You don't have to win every debate. You don't have to clear up every misunderstanding. Sometimes the best response is to live so clearly that people can't twist your truth. And that kind of clarity, of purpose, of identity, of values, can only grow in silence. The truth is, your opinion is precious. It's not meant to be tossed into every fight. It's meant to be cultivated, sharpened, deepened, so that when you do choose to speak, your words actually carry weight. And here's something you might not expect. The more you practice this, the more people begin to respect you. Not because you're loud, but because you're steady. Because in a world of noise, your silence stands out. Your calm becomes a kind of authority, and your restraint becomes a kind of power. That's what Marcus was building: a quiet power, a durable peace. Not because life was easy, but because he refused to be a slave to his own reactions. So the next time you feel the urge to weigh in, to jump into the debate, to prove your point, to set the record straight, pause, breathe. Ask yourself, is this noise or is this necessary? Am I being pulled or am I choosing? Because that pause might be the most stoic thing you do. And that's the real lesson here. Silence isn't the absence of a voice, it's the presence of strength. It's the space between stimulus and response. The space where your freedom lives. The space where your peace waits. So no, you don't have to weigh in. You don't have to have a take. You don't need to stamp every moment with a label. What you need is a mind that's free. Let that be your power. Let that be your peace. He wasn't pretending to be flawless. He was holding himself accountable. One mistake at a time. Most of his wisdom comes from where he fell short. That's not weakness. That's exactly what growth looks like. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor of Rome, the most powerful man in the world at the time, didn't sit on a golden throne and write meditations to impress anyone. He didn't craft it to gain followers, boost his image, or secure a legacy. That's what makes it powerful. It was private, honest, sometimes painfully so. It was a journal, a conversation with himself, and in that conversation you don't find a man bragging about his triumphs. You find a man admitting again and again where he slipped, where his emotions got the best of him, where his ego crept in, where he forgot his values. He wrote, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly." That's not a motivational quote. That's someone coaching himself through frustration. That's a leader preparing his mind not to explode, not to judge, but to respond with steadiness. Because Marcus knew something we often forget. Strength doesn't come from pretending to be above the struggle. It comes from being inside it and choosing not to be broken by it. We live in a culture obsessed with image, with curating perfection, with projecting certainty. But Marcus wasn't performing. He was examining. In fact, many of the entries in Meditations feel like mental corrections. He'll say something like, "Don't be overheard complaining, not even to yourself." That's not him judging others. That's him checking himself. That's what Stoicism demands. Not that you never fall, but that you're honest when you do. Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Marcus was doing exactly that, bringing the unconscious to light. Every frustration, every flaw, every emotional spiral, he didn't bury them. He wrote them down, he looked at them, and in doing so, he refused to let them own him. Growth doesn't look like a highlight reel. It looks like wrestling with your own thoughts. It looks like waking up and realizing, "I messed up yesterday, but today I'll do better." That's the real work. Not climbing to some imagined mountaintop of enlightenment, but simply staying aware, checking yourself before you go too far, catching the slip before it turns into a spiral. Think about the last time you overreacted, said something you regretted, held on to a grudge longer than you should have. What did you do afterward? Did you blame the other person? Did you justify it? Or did you even quietly say, "That's on me"? That moment right there, that tiny acknowledgement, is what Marcus practiced every day. And that's where growth lives, not in perfection, but in self-awareness. Aristotle wrote, "Knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom." Marcus took that literally. Every day he checked in, not with others, but with himself. Am I being ruled by fear, by anger, by ego? These weren't passing thoughts. They were his daily practice, his form of discipline, his mirror. And that's the difference between someone who wants to look wise and someone who becomes wise. One avoids mistakes, hides them, denies them. The other exposes them, examines them, learns from them. In one passage, Marcus reminds himself, "If someone is able to show me that what I think or do is not right, I will happily change, for I seek the truth." That level of humility from an emperor is staggering. And it's not just poetic, it's powerful, because true growth doesn't come from clinging to being right. It comes from being willing to change your mind when a better truth presents itself. And isn't that the battle most of us fight every day? The tension between wanting to look right and actually being right. Between defending our pride and admitting we've got more to learn. Marcus leaned into that tension. He let it teach him. Plato once said, "The first and greatest victory is to conquer yourself." That's exactly what Marcus was attempting daily, quietly, imperfectly. He wasn't at war with armies alone. He was at war with himself, with his impulses, his frustration, his need to control, his desire to retaliate, his hunger for recognition. He met these enemies not with force, but with awareness, and sometimes with surrender. That's what accountability is. Not punishment, not shame, but presence. Owning your part, seeing yourself clearly, and choosing every time to rise a little higher. Marcus didn't celebrate himself in his writings. He corrected himself, over and over again. He would write things like, "At every hour, give your full concentration. Do everything as if it were the last thing you were doing in your life." He wasn't preaching, he was reminding himself, because, like all of us, he got distracted, he got emotional, he got tired. He forgot what mattered, and instead of hiding that, he wrote it down. That's strength. Socrates taught that the unexamined life is not worth living. Marcus examined his, not once, not occasionally, but daily, even as an emperor, even during wars, even while grieving. That kind of consistency is rare. And that's where transformation begins, not in the moment of clarity, but in the habit of returning to it. You can feel his humanity in the pages. There's no ego, no arrogance, just a man trying to stay centered in the chaos of power, responsibility, loss, and temptation. He faced the same struggles we do, just amplified 1,000 times, and still he showed up. Still he held himself to a higher standard, not because anyone was watching, but because he was watching. Think about that for a second. What if your life was being watched, not by others, but by your future self? The version of you 5 years from now, 10 years from now. The one who's wiser, calmer, more grounded. What would they say about the way you're living today? Would they thank you for your accountability, or would they be cleaning up the mess your ego left behind? That's what Marcus tapped into. He wasn't writing for applause, he was writing for alignment. He was staying accountable to the only person he couldn't lie to, himself. And maybe that's the most powerful lesson of all, that real self-respect isn't built on being flawless. It's built on being real, on being honest enough to say, "I slipped, but I see it, and I'll do better tomorrow." It's not glamorous. It's not easy, but it's rare. And in a world obsessed with filters, with performance, with always appearing in control, there's something revolutionary about simply saying, "I'm still learning." So if you're on that path of holding yourself accountable, of admitting where you fall short, of choosing to grow instead of pretend, then you're already walking beside Marcus. Not in history, but in practice, in mindset, in courage. Because that's what courage looks like. Not standing tall on a stage, but kneeling quietly in front of your own mistakes and saying, "Teach me." He lists the names of emperors long forgotten, men who once ruled, who commanded armies, who shaped nations, and whose names now slip through history like dust through fingers. And then, in the same breath, Marcus Aurelius reminds himself, "I will be one of them." Forgotten, eventually, erased from memory, just like the rest. But he doesn't flinch. He doesn't despair. Because he never clung to legacy. He clung to character. That shift in focus changes everything. We live in a world obsessed with legacy. How we'll be remembered, how big our name will be, how many people know who we are. Social media has only amplified this hunger. Fame now seems just a post away. Visibility feels like power. And yet, here is Marcus, the most powerful man of his time, and he's telling himself, soon you'll be ashes or bones, a mere name at most. And even that is just a sound, an echo. That's not nihilism. That's clarity. He's not saying life is meaningless. He's saying stop trying to make your meaning depend on things that will never last. Stop chasing applause you'll never hear. Instead, build your life on something no one can take from you, your values. It's easy to confuse legacy with purpose, but legacy is external. It's how the world remembers you. Purpose is internal. It's how you live with yourself. Marcus chose the second, because legacy is a dangerous addiction. The more you chase being remembered, the more you shape your life for the crowd. You start making decisions not because they're right, but because they look impressive. You begin speaking not with honesty, but with strategy. You become less yourself and more a performance. But Marcus understood what most never do. You can't control how you'll be remembered. You can only control how you show up, what you stand for, what kind of person you are when no one's watching. That's what he meant when he said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." Not because people are watching, but because you are watching. Plato wrote, "The first and greatest victory is to conquer yourself." Marcus took that seriously. His victory wasn't over the Parthians or Germanic tribes. It was over the temptation to make his reign about power instead of principle. In a world that begged him to rule with dominance, he chose discipline. In a palace filled with temptation, he practiced restraint. In an empire that offered him worship, he humbled himself daily. Think about how rare that is. Most people, when given a taste of power, crave more. They become addicted to being seen, being followed, being praised. They want to build monuments, not just of stone, but of image. But Marcus saw through all that. He knew fame was fleeting. Praise is temporary. The crowd is fickle. What lasts is character. What matters is virtue. What endures is integrity. He reminded himself constantly that people's opinions were out of his control. He even wrote, "All is ephemeral, fame and the famous as well." And yet, how often do we live our lives as if public approval is the finish line? We work for recognition, for awards, for likes, for retweets. And then we wonder why we feel empty even after we get them. Because applause can't fill you. It can only distract you from the work that actually builds peace. Carl Jung said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." And that's what Marcus did in Meditations. Not perfectly, not all at once, but persistently. Day by day, entry by entry, he faced himself, not as a figure of grandeur, but as a man trying to live well, not to impress, but to align. He knew his name would fade, but his soul, that was his responsibility. That was his masterpiece. And that's why, even though he knew he'd be forgotten, he wrote anyway. Not to be remembered, but to remember himself. To keep himself centered, aligned, awake. Socrates was once told that the oracle at Delphi proclaimed him the wisest man in Athens. But Socrates didn't let it inflate his ego. He doubled down on his quest for truth, for inner clarity. He said, "I know that I know nothing," because the goal was never to appear wise, it was to live wisely. The same thread runs through Marcus. He didn't care about appearing moral, he cared about becoming moral. And that's the invitation Stoicism extends to us. not to chase the spotlight, but to light our own path, to measure ourselves not by external applause, but by internal alignment. Did I live today in a way that reflects my values? Did I hold myself to the standard I claim to believe in? Did I do the right thing even when no one clapped? These are the questions that matter. Legacy is loud, character is quiet. Legacy wants a crowd. Character just needs a conscience. Legacy asks, what will they say about me? Character asks, what do I know to be true? And here's the irony. If you live for legacy, you may lose both legacy and character. But if you live for character, sometimes legacy follows anyway, quietly, naturally, as a side effect, not a goal. Marcus didn't make decisions with history in mind. He made decisions with virtue in mind. And because of that, history remembers him, not for his conquests, but for his convictions. He reminds us that the size of your stage doesn't determine the strength of your soul. You don't need to lead an empire to live with integrity. You don't need a title to practice humility. You don't need 1 million followers to be grounded in purpose. You just need to decide what matters and live like it does. So what matters to you? Fame or peace? Recognition or integrity? What do you want your days to stand for? Because in the end, your life isn't built in grand gestures. It's built in the small choices you make when no one's watching. It's built when you return the shopping cart, when you admit you were wrong, when you stay honest even when it costs you, when you keep your word not for credit, but because it's who you are. Marcus wrote, "If someone can prove me wrong and show me my mistake, I will gladly change." That's the mark of a man who isn't obsessed with looking right, but with being real. And that's what makes his wisdom last. Not that he had all the answers, but that he kept asking the right questions. Questions like, what kind of person do I want to be? Am I living like it? What am I clinging to that doesn't matter? He knew that death would come, that time would erase his name, that the Roman Empire would eventually fall. But he also knew that the human soul is timeless, that courage is timeless, that discipline, humility, compassion, and reason, they echo far beyond any headline or statue. So maybe the goal isn't to be remembered. Maybe the goal is to be real, to live in such a way that even if no one ever tells your story, the people you touched will never forget how you made them feel. Not because you were impressive, but because you were grounded, honest, present. Don't build your life chasing applause you'll never hear. Build it on values you'll never regret. Let your name fade. Let your face disappear. Let history forget you. But let your soul remain intact. Let your integrity whisper louder than the world shouts. And when you lie down at the end of the day, may your peace be your legacy. Floods, wars, death, betrayal. Marcus endured all of it. Plagues that decimated the empire, rebellions that tested his reign, the betrayal of trusted generals, the loss of children one after another, the constant presence of death, not as a metaphor, but as a companion. And still he kept showing up. Day after day, page after page, he returned to his journal, to his discipline, to his principles. Why? Because he understood something we often forget. The storms outside don't have to become storms inside. He didn't let heartbreak make him bitter. He let it make him better. And there's a massive difference between the two. Bitterness is easy. It's automatic. When life hurts you, when people disappoint you, when the world feels unfair, it's natural to armor up, to close off, to see everything through the lens of pain. But Marcus knew that once you let pain twist your perspective, you lose the only thing you truly control, your character. So instead, he chose the harder path, the Stoic path. He didn't suppress the pain, he studied it, he examined it, he let it shape him without defining him. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That wasn't theory, that was survival. Because outside events were a relentless flood, plagues, civil unrest, war on multiple borders, personal tragedy. Marcus could have collapsed, he could have turned cruel, detached, cynical, but he didn't. He chose to keep showing up, fully, honestly, even when it broke his heart. He lost his children and still reminded himself not to expect permanence. "You could leave life right now," he wrote. "Let that determine what you do and say and think." This wasn't morbid. It was grounding. It was his way of staying connected to what mattered. Because when death sits close, you stop wasting time. You stop taking people for granted. You stop running from discomfort and start showing up for life exactly as it is, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. He didn't glamorize suffering, but he didn't avoid it either. He believed deeply that pain is a teacher, not a punishment, a lesson in what we value, a mirror of our ego, a test of our principles. Carl Jung once said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." Marcus lived that. He didn't escape the darkness, he walked through it, wrote through it, grew through it. Every line of Meditations is a man wrestling with heartbreak, disappointment, injustice, and still choosing virtue. Think about that the next time life punches you in the gut. When you feel abandoned, when your plans fall apart, when someone you trust turns their back, you have two choices: harden or grow. Marcus chose to grow. He could have used power to numb himself, distraction, pleasure, anger, but he didn't. He chose to face reality fully awake. He reminded himself, if it is endurable, then endure it. Stop complaining. That wasn't coldness, that was resilience. It was a refusal to be ruled by resentment, betrayal. He faced it. Loss, he accepted it. War, he led through it. Every time life knocked him down, he got back up. Not because he was invincible, but because he was grounded in values, in discipline, in the constant reminder that this moment, no matter how painful, was shaping him. There's a reason we still read Marcus 2,000 years later, not because he was perfect, but because he kept going, kept learning, kept loving virtue more than comfort. When the Antonine Plague ravaged the empire, he didn't flee to safety. He stayed, served, led, even as death swept through the population, even as his own health declined. He chose duty, chose presence, chose purpose. That's what showing up looks like. And we're not talking about grand gestures. Showing up isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it means simply getting out of bed when you don't want to, writing the truth when it scares you, being kind when your heart is still broken, owning your emotions instead of unloading them on others, choosing the next right thing when everything feels wrong. Showing up isn't about being unshakable, it's about being committed. Committed to growth, committed to your principles, committed to living with clarity, even in chaos. Aristotle once said, "We are what we repeatedly do." Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. Marcus made showing up a habit, not a one-time act of bravery, but a repeated discipline. A decision made each day not to give up, not to numb out, not to let bitterness take root. He chose to believe that life was still worth showing up for, even when it broke him, especially when it broke him. Because heartbreak doesn't have to end you, it can open you. It can soften the ego, expand the soul, clarify what matters. Pain has that power if you let it teach you. Socrates, even on trial for his life, refused to abandon his principles. He didn't beg, didn't flatter, didn't sell out. He stood in truth, calmly, firmly, fully present. Because, like Marcus, he understood. Your circumstances don't define your strength. Your choices do. The Stoics never promised comfort. They promised clarity. And clarity begins when you stop asking, "Why me?" and start asking, "What now?" Marcus faced unspeakable loss, and instead of collapsing, he wrote. Instead of hiding, he led. Instead of turning cold, he turned inward. He wasn't pretending to be okay. He was practicing being unbroken. That's real strength, not pretending life is fine, but choosing to live fully anyway. When everything feels like it's falling apart, your relationships, your career, your sense of identity, you have one power no one can take from you, the power to stay engaged, not with perfection, but with presence, to keep showing up, to breathe, to reflect, to act from virtue instead of pain. Marcus could have written angry books. He could have used his position to rewrite the narrative, blame others, justify himself. But instead, he wrote meditations, not for glory, not for sympathy, but for self-correction, for realignment, for remembering what mattered. He asked himself over and over, "What is in my control?" Because that question was his anchor, and it can be yours too. No matter what you're facing, betrayal, loss, heartbreak, disappointment, you have a choice. Will you let it close your heart or deepen your character? Bitterness is easy. Just stop caring, build walls, expect the worst. But that's not strength. That's fear in disguise. Real strength is vulnerability with discipline. It's saying, yes, I've been hurt. Yes, I feel lost, but I still choose to love, still choose to lead, still choose to live, not perfectly, but honestly. So when life knocks the breath out of you, remember Marcus. Remember the emperor who cried in silence, wrote to himself in grief, and chose action when retreat was easier. He showed up for life even when it was breaking him. And that choice, that daily, humble, human choice, is what made him great. Not the throne, not the power, not the empire, but the quiet decision to keep his heart open when the world tried to shut it. You have that same power. You can keep showing up, not for the world's approval, but for your own evolution, for the person you're becoming through the struggle, for the peace that waits on the other side of persistence. Let pain shape you, not define you. Let heartbreak refine you, not harden you. And let Marcus remind you that being broken doesn't mean you're done. It means you're being rebuilt, wiser, clearer, deeper. So stand up, show up, even now, especially now. Your co-worker, your ex, that driver who cut you off, they're not blocks in your path. They're the path itself. It doesn't always feel that way. It feels like interruptions, obstacles, roadblocks to your peace and progress. The co-worker who micromanages, the ex who left things unresolved, the stranger who disrespects you with a horn blast or a finger in traffic. You tell yourself, if they weren't in the way, I'd be fine. But Marcus Aurelius reminds us they are the way. He wrote, "People are your proper occupation, not your distraction, not your excuse, but your work. Not to fix them, not to judge them, but to meet them as tests of your own discipline, your kindness, your values." That's the part we miss. We think growth happens in solitude, in silence, on mountaintops and meditation pillows. But it's easy to be calm when no one's annoying you. It's easy to be kind when no one's triggering you. The real test, the real measure of who you are, is how you respond to the people who challenge your ego, your patience, your expectations. Marcus knew this because he lived it. He wasn't journaling from a monastery. He was writing while leading armies, while managing senators, while grieving lost children and navigating betrayals in his court. Every day, people pulled at his energy, tested his integrity, demanded his time, and instead of resenting them, he used them as mirrors, as reminders, as practice. He wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." When he said that, he wasn't just talking about illness or misfortune, he was talking about people too. Because nothing triggers us faster than other people. They push our buttons, stir our insecurities, reflect the parts of us we haven't fully mastered. But if you let them, they also reveal your growth, your gaps, your grace. Let's be honest, it's easy to love humanity in theory. It's people in real life who make it hard. The friend who flakes, the boss who criticizes, the parent who never seems satisfied. And yet these are the moments that define you, not just as a Stoic, but as a human being. Carl Jung once said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." That's exactly what Marcus practiced. He didn't just tolerate people, he used his reactions to them as signals. If he felt anger rising, that was an invitation to study it. If he felt superior, that was a cue to check his pride. If he felt annoyed, that was a challenge to choose patience. This isn't about letting people walk all over you. It's about not letting them knock you off your path. The truth is, anyone can meditate in a quiet room. The real work is staying centered when someone is disrespectful in a meeting, when your ex texts something passive-aggressive, when someone cuts you off in traffic and your instinct is to respond with rage. Marcus didn't aim to control others. He aimed to control himself. And that's the only real power any of us have. He reminded himself, it's not things that upset us, but our judgments about them. He extended that wisdom to people. He knew people don't upset us just by existing. It's our expectations, our attachments, our reactions to who we think they should be that upset us. So what if we dropped the judgment? What if we saw each difficult person as a trainer showing up to refine our patience, to sharpen our understanding, to expose the parts of us that still need work? You don't need more peace and quiet to grow. You need the humility to see growth in chaos, in conflict, in discomfort. That means your co-worker's constant negativity. That's your training ground for compassion. Your ex's bitterness, a test of your boundaries. That rude driver, a masterclass in self-regulation. They're not obstacles. They're the curriculum. Think about it like this. You're a sculptor, and these people are the chisels. Not because they're always right, but because they shape you. They force you to clarify your values, your reactions, your identity. Plato wrote, "Be kind, for everyone you meet is fighting a hard battle." Marcus didn't use this idea to excuse poor behavior, but to remind himself that empathy is part of strength. That understanding is part of wisdom. And that kindness isn't weakness. It's evidence of inner mastery. Because let's face it, anyone can snap, anyone can retaliate. But to stay composed when provoked, that's power. The person who triggers you the most is your greatest teacher. Not because they're wise, but because they reveal your edges, the places where you still react instead of respond, where your ego still takes the wheel, where your principles waver. And that's where the work begins. Imagine this. You walk into work and your colleague makes another passive comment. You feel your body tighten, your brain race for a comeback. But then something shifts. You remember, this isn't about them. This is about you, your center, your standard. So instead of reacting, you breathe. You return to principle. You choose the higher response, not because they deserve it, but because you do. You deserve to live untangled by pettiness, unshaken by immaturity, uncontrolled by others' chaos. That's not weakness, that's Stoic strength. Marcus knew the world wouldn't stop testing him. People wouldn't stop being people. So he stopped expecting them to change and focused on mastering his own mind. He wrote, "When someone does wrong, you must forgive him. But not because he deserves forgiveness. The wrongdoer may not, but because you deserve peace." That's the essence of Stoic resilience. Not reactive, not passive, but principled, steady, awake. And let's be clear, this doesn't mean you stay in toxic situations. It means you stop outsourcing your inner state to external behavior. You can walk away and still be kind. You can set boundaries and still show grace. You can disagree and still remain composed. Because real discipline isn't about suppressing emotion. It's about channeling it with awareness, turning anger into clarity, turning pain into insight, turning conflict into practice. Socrates said, "The greatest way to live with honor in this world is to be what we pretend to be." Most people pretend to be above the drama, but fold when challenged. Marcus aimed to live it, to embody the values he wrote about, and that's why he kept reminding himself, the world doesn't owe you peace. You have to cultivate it. And you do that in the hard moments, not in theory, but in real time. When someone disrespects you, when someone misunderstands you, when someone disappoints you. And you don't let it make you smaller. You don't let it harden you. You meet it with clarity, with courage, with compassion. That's Stoicism lived, not just studied. That's what Marcus meant when he said, "People are your proper occupation." Not that you have to fix them, but that they give you the opportunity to practice every virtue you claim to believe in. Patience, wisdom, courage, discipline, forgiveness. These aren't ideas, they're actions. And your ex, your co-worker, that driver, they are the training ground. They are not outside your path. They are the path. And every time you meet them with virtue instead of vengeance, you're not letting them win. You're letting you win. You're affirming your values, building your identity, solidifying your peace. So stop waiting for the world to make it easier. Get better at showing up stronger, not louder, not angrier, stronger. Because that's how you reclaim your power, not by controlling them, but by mastering yourself. Marcus knew that. Now you do too. What if the thing you hate is the thing that's helping you most? We don't like to think that way. Pain is supposed to be bad. Frustration is something we're told to avoid. Discomfort, that's failure, right? But the Stoics offer a different lens, a reframe. What if the very thing you're trying to run from is the thing that's shaping you? What if the obstacle isn't just blocking your path, it is your path? This is the Stoic shift. Pain becomes fuel, problems become practice. Everything becomes an opportunity if you choose to see it that way. That's not toxic positivity. It's not pretending that everything feels good. It's something deeper. It's the discipline of asking, what is this teaching me? Even when you're in the middle of the mess, it's refusing to let pain be wasted. Marcus Aurelius didn't have an easy life. He didn't write about struggle in theory. He wrote from within it. He buried children, led wars, endured plagues, was betrayed by friends, faced sickness, insomnia, and enormous pressure. And yet, over and over, he reminded himself, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. It sounds poetic, but it's also painfully practical. He was saying, this thing I hate, this thing I didn't ask for, it's exactly what I need. Why? Because adversity doesn't just show you who you are, it makes you who you are. Think about the times in your life that changed you most. Was it comfort that transformed you? Or was it pressure, loss, challenge? Almost always, it's the hard moments that sculpt us. Carl Jung once said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." Marcus would agree. Because pain breaks the illusion of control. It exposes where we're fragile, where we've built on shaky ground. But it also shows us what we're capable of, what we can endure, what we can rise from, what we can become. So the Stoic reframe isn't just intellectual, it's existential. It's a way of walking through life with your eyes open, willing to see pain not as the enemy, but as an instructor. Let's say you're in a job you hate. It drains you, it frustrates you, you feel stuck. Most people would numb themselves, complain endlessly, or bail impulsively. But the Stoic approach is different. You pause. You ask, what is this teaching me? Maybe it's showing you what you value. Maybe it's revealing how much of your identity is tied to external validation. Maybe it's training you to hold boundaries, to find courage, to clarify your purpose. The discomfort isn't the problem, it's the feedback. The same applies to relationships. That heartbreak, that rejection, it stings. But it also unmasks you. It shows you where you placed your worth, where your expectations were unrealistic, where your healing still needs work, and it gives you a choice, bitterness or depth. The Stoic doesn't suppress pain, they reframe it, they work with it. Aristotle said, "We are what we repeatedly do." Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. And that habit begins with how we interpret difficulty. If you see hardship as failure, you'll shrink. But if you see it as material, raw, uncomfortable but essential, then you begin to grow. Let's bring this closer to home. You set a goal, you start a habit, you make a decision to change. But then life pushes back. You feel resistance. You feel tempted to quit. You think, maybe this isn't meant to be. But what if that resistance is the proof that it's worth it? That's what Stoicism teaches us. Every meaningful transformation is forged through friction. Muscles grow from tension, minds grow from challenge, souls grow from pressure. The Stoics don't glorify suffering for its own sake. They just refuse to waste it. Marcus didn't say, enjoy pain. He said, use it. Because if you're willing to sit with it, study it, respond to it, you can turn even the worst days into your strongest foundation. Viktor Frankl, the psychologist and Holocaust survivor, once said, "When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves." That is the Stoic path, not controlling everything, but becoming stronger, clearer, freer within anything. So next time you're frustrated, pause. Ask, what's the lesson here? Next time you're hurt, pause. Ask, what is this teaching me about myself? Next time life feels unfair, pause. Ask, how can I rise through this, not just survive it? That's not weakness. That's alchemy, turning frustration into focus, turning disappointment into direction, turning chaos into clarity. Marcus didn't become wise because life was easy. He became wise because he stayed awake through the storms. He journaled, he questioned, he took responsibility for his emotions even when they overwhelmed him. He wrote, "If you are pained by any external thing, it is not this thing that disturbs you, but your own judgment about it. And it is in your power to wipe out that judgment now." Notice what he didn't say. He didn't say you should deny the pain. He didn't say pretend it doesn't hurt. He said, challenge your interpretation. Because once you realize you can choose your frame, you can choose your response. You've already reclaimed your power. The thing you hate might be the thing that saves you. The failure that humbles you, the rejection that redirects you, the silence that teaches you to listen, the struggle that shapes your resilience. But only if you let it, only if you stop resisting what is and start using it to become who you're meant to be. Socrates was sentenced to death for speaking truth. He didn't panic. He didn't run. He accepted his fate. Not because he wanted to die, but because he believed in integrity more than comfort. That's the Stoic spirit. Not passive acceptance, but purposeful acceptance. Active surrender. So, when you feel stuck, angry, ashamed, pause. What if this moment is exactly what you needed? Not to punish you, but to prepare you. Not to break you, but to build you. There's power in that. There's peace in that. And most of all, there's freedom in that. Because you stop being a victim of life. You become a partner in your own evolution. And that's what Marcus wanted for himself, for us. Not a life without problems, but a mind trained to meet them with wisdom. So next time life hands you something you didn't ask for, pause and ask the most stoic question of all. What if this is helping me? Marcus said we should be like the rock the waves crash upon, and he didn't say that lightly. He lived it. The waves in his life weren't metaphorical. They were brutal, relentless, and real. Death stalked his children. War consumed his borders. Political betrayal tested his trust. He was emperor of the most powerful empire in the world, but not even he could command the weather of life to calm down. He couldn't stop the storms, so instead he became the rock, still, present, unmoved. Because life will never stop throwing storms at you. It doesn't care how good your intentions are. It doesn't adjust itself to your plans. There's no break room, no time out, no final destination where everything's finally stable, finally easy, finally calm. That's the fantasy, and the faster you let go of it, the freer you become. See, the Stoics didn't waste time fantasizing about a perfect life. They trained for the life they had. Marcus wasn't looking for a way around adversity. He was looking for a way through it. That's what the rock represents. Not perfection, not denial, but preparation. The disciplined mind that says, I may not choose the storm, but I choose how I show up in it. And that's where your power lives. We're taught to flinch, to chase comfort, to back away when life gets messy. But what if the storm isn't here to break you? What if it's here to reveal you? Marcus believed it was. He believed life's waves don't just test you, they show you who you are. And when you don't like what you see, that's your work. So you learn to stand still, not out of apathy, but out of awareness, out of depth. Stillness isn't the absence of emotion. It's the refusal to let emotion hijack your behavior. It's the wisdom to feel fully without losing your footing. And that kind of stillness? It's rare. It's powerful. It's what people mean when they say someone has presence. It's not volume, it's gravity. It's something you cultivate moment by moment, decision by decision, wave by crashing wave. Let's make this personal. You get blindsided. Maybe a relationship ends. Maybe a job falls through. Maybe someone you trusted turns on you. Your instincts scream, react, panic, collapse. But then something quieter speaks. Hold, breathe, stay with it. That moment of pause, that's the difference. That's where the rock starts to form. You don't have to be flawless. You don't have to feel ready. You just have to stop giving your strength away to every crashing wave. You don't chase the wave. You don't become the wave. You endure the wave, and you learn that it always passes. You begin to understand that stillness is not inaction. It's intention. It's presence. It's what allows you to respond with clarity instead of reacting with chaos. And that's not coldness. That's inner power. Because anyone can explode. Anyone can shut down. Anyone can scream back at the storm. But the one who remains grounded, thoughtful, composed, that person becomes unshakable. They become what the world needs, but rarely sees. Aristotle wrote, "Anybody can become angry. That is easy. But to be angry with the right person, to the right degree, at the right time, for the right purpose, that is not easy." That's the discipline Marcus was practicing. Not suppression, but discernment. He wasn't emotionless. He felt deeply. But he also knew that emotions are weather, and identity is the ground beneath it. If you confuse the two, you'll always be carried away by the next storm. So the goal isn't to avoid storms. The goal is to build an inner foundation that's wider than the waves, that's deeper than the winds, that can hold still even when the world around you doesn't. And yes, it will be tested. You'll be criticized, misunderstood, overlooked, hurt. And you'll be tempted to break your character just to make a point. But here's the truth Marcus lived by. Nothing is worth your peace. Nothing is worth your integrity. The moment you let outer chaos shape your inner compass, you've lost more than any enemy could take from you. So you keep standing, not for applause, not to prove anything, but because you've decided who you are. And storms don't rewrite identity, they reveal it. Carl Jung said, "Only what is really oneself has the power to heal." And healing begins when you stop pretending to be the storm and start becoming the rock. When you no longer seek control over everything around you, but start developing mastery over what's within you. And that mastery isn't loud. It doesn't beg to be seen. It just is, like a rock in the surf, like calm in the middle of a storm, like a soul that's rooted even when the ground shakes. So the next time life throws another wave, and it will, ask yourself, am I going to collapse into this, or am I going to remember that I don't have to move just because something tried to move me? The storm will pass. And you? You'll still be here, unshaken. But let's go even deeper. What does it really mean to love your fate? Not just when it's neutral, but when it feels unfair. It means stepping into a higher order of personal responsibility. It means saying, even this, yes, this too is part of my story. Not just accepting the chapters you like, but respecting the ones that nearly broke you. Because the fire doesn't choose what's thrown into it. It simply takes everything and burns brighter. And here's what most people never realize. The parts of your life that felt like punishment might actually be the parts preparing you for the thing you were born to do. Maybe that painful relationship taught you boundaries. Maybe that job you lost taught you value. Maybe that illness made you look inward for the first time in your life. The lesson isn't always clear when you're inside it, but clarity comes with time and courage and a willingness to ask, Not, why is this happening to me, but who am I becoming because of it? That's the Stoic lens. It's not a trick to feel better, it's a training of the soul to grow deeper. Marcus believed that nothing external could truly harm you unless it damaged your character. Everything else, injury, insult, misfortune, was just material. Raw clay. You're the sculptor. You decide what shape it takes in your life. So when the world throws its worst at you, what do? You mold it. You reframe it. You say, this will become part of the foundation I stand on. This will become something useful. It's a practice, and like all practices, you won't always get it right. There will be days when you don't want to accept it, days when you curse the pain, days when you slip back into old habits of resentment. But even that too becomes part of the work. Growth isn't a straight line, it's a spiral staircase. Sometimes you circle back just to realize how far you've come, and through it all, the fire still burns. Remember, every time you say, this shouldn't be happening, you're reinforcing a belief that life must obey your expectations. But it never will. The Stoics knew that life doesn't promise fairness, it only promises itself. Your job isn't to control the script. Your job is to play your role with excellence, whatever scene you're handed. Seneca wrote, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." Marcus lived that truth. So can you, because the power isn't in what happens. The power is in your interpretation. The power is in how you assign meaning to it. And the most empowering meaning you can assign is this: it's here to grow me. That doesn't make the pain less real. It makes the pain worth it. And the more you practice this radical, liberating, Stoic reframe, the more you start to walk differently, talk differently, carry yourself differently. Because now you're not resisting life, you're flowing with it. You're not recoiling from the fire, you are the fire, and the world feels that. They may not understand it, but they feel the steadiness, the groundedness, the quiet confidence that comes from someone who has loved even their hardest moments. Someone who isn't afraid to be tested. Because when you love what happens, nothing can own you. You're not a prisoner to outcomes. You're not a hostage to circumstances. You're not waiting for the world to be perfect so you can feel peace. You carry your peace inside you, and you protect that peace not by shielding yourself from life, but by saying yes to it all. That's not naive. That's not weakness. That's strength in its purest form. So the next time something goes wrong, and it will, you already know what to do. Don't just tolerate it. Don't just wait it out. Take it in. Turn it into fuel. Let it sharpen you, because it's not enough to accept what happens. Love it, and let it set your soul on fire. Why did Marcus journal every day? Because reflection creates distance, and distance gives you perspective. When life pulls you into its chaos, when emotions are high, when your mind is racing, journaling becomes an anchor, not to escape the storm, but to step back just enough to see the shape of it. That's what Marcus understood. He wasn't writing to impress anyone. His pages weren't filled with polished thoughts. They were raw, uneven, repetitive. That's because they weren't meant for the world. They were meant for him. For the part of him trying to stay upright in a world that was constantly shifting under his feet. He wrote to see his mind on paper, because when you write, the whirlwind of your thoughts has to slow down enough to become words. And when thoughts become words, they become visible, manageable, moldable. Instead of drowning in feeling, you start to find form. That's the first gift of journaling. It transforms emotion into something you can study rather than something that controls you. Marcus wasn't journaling because he had nothing better to do. As emperor, he was journaling because he had too much going on, leading an empire, losing his children, managing war, betrayal, illness. He didn't journal from comfort, he journaled to survive. And not survive like getting by, but survive with sanity, with clarity, with strength. When he said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events," that wasn't abstract. That was earned wisdom, captured in writing during moments of deep inner work. Writing creates that space. When something frustrates you and you write about it, the mere act of putting it into a sentence can reduce its hold on you. It forces you to name what you're experiencing. And naming is power. Carl Jung spoke often about the unconscious mind, how what we don't understand in ourselves rules us. But journaling brings the unconscious into the light. The unknown becomes known. That's how you reclaim your power. You face your thoughts. You don't flinch. You don't distract yourself. You sit with the truth and invite it onto the page. And once it's on the page, you can begin to see, where am I lying to myself? Where am I avoiding responsibility? Where am I falling into patterns that no longer serve me? Marcus did this constantly. He questioned himself more than anyone else. Not because he hated himself, but because he loved the idea of becoming better. The journal was his way of sculpting his soul, every page a chisel, every entry a strike of self-honesty. That's what Stoicism is, not coldness, not detachment, but radical ownership of your inner life. And writing is one of the most powerful ways to live that ownership. We live in a noisy world. Everyone wants to speak. Few want to understand. Everyone wants to react. Few take the time to reflect. Marcus chose reflection, and it shows. His meditations are full of conflict, internal and external, but always pointing back to the discipline of perception. Perception, how you see what happens to you. Writing trains that. It sharpens your ability to observe yourself without judgment, to ask, what am I really feeling here? What's underneath this anger, this fear, this pride? It slows you down, and in that slowness, insight has a chance to emerge. The Stoics knew the danger of unexamined emotions. Emotions aren't the enemy, but uncontrolled emotion. That's what destroys empires. That's what ends friendships. That's what blinds judgment. That's why Marcus wrote, because unchecked emotion clouds the mind, and a clouded mind can't lead, not a country, not a family, not even itself. So he wrote. Some entries are reminders, others are corrections, some are stern, others heartbreakingly tender. He was talking to himself, but in doing so, he ended up talking to all of us. We read Marcus today because he dared to think through the chaos instead of react to it, and writing gave him the room to do that. When you pick up a pen or sit down at a keyboard, you're doing more than recording your day. You're excavating your soul. You're saying, I'm not going to be a prisoner of my mind. I'm going to become its master. Thought by thought, word by word. Journaling doesn't always feel profound in the moment. Sometimes you're just dumping frustration onto the page. But even that, especially that, is valuable. Because it's honest. And honesty with yourself is the foundation of any real change. Marcus didn't filter his thoughts. That's what makes his writing timeless. He admitted when he was frustrated. He admitted when he failed. He wrote about being tired, about being tempted, about trying to be good in a world that often rewards the opposite. That kind of honesty is rare, and it's what makes him trustworthy. He wasn't performing, he was processing. And in that process, he became stronger. Writing is a way to interrupt the noise, to step outside the blur of life and ask, what's really going on here? And that distance, that pause, is often all you need to see your situation with fresh eyes. You start to recognize patterns. You start to see what you keep reacting to. You start to notice what you've been avoiding. And slowly, a kind of inner map forms. A record of your thinking, a trail of your transformation. Marcus left us that trail. Not on purpose, but thank God he did. Because in reading it, we're reminded that wisdom isn't found. It's built. It's carved out of daily practice. Of showing up to the page when you don't feel like it. Of wrestling with your thoughts until something clear and grounded comes through. We often think of writing as expression, but in Stoicism, writing is inspection, a tool for truth, a way to track the distance between who you are and who you aspire to be. That distance matters because it's easy to deceive others, harder to deceive yourself if you're honest. And on the page, that honesty reveals your real work. It shows you where you've been acting out of ego, where you've been blaming others, where you've abandoned your principles. And it also shows you where you've grown, where you've paused instead of reacted, where you've chosen strength over impulse, where you've shown compassion in the face of chaos. The page remembers even when you don't, and the more you write, the more you evolve, not in grand epiphanies, but in quiet, consistent clarity, in reflection that compounds over time. That's how Marcus trained his mind to lead, not just others, but himself. And it's how you can do the same. You don't need perfect words. You don't need a system. You just need to start. Write about what's bothering you, what you're afraid of, what you're avoiding, what you want, what you miss, what you're grateful for. No one has to see it. That's the beauty. It's not performance, it's practice. And that practice, repeated, builds something priceless. Perspective. And from perspective comes peace. And from peace, you move through the world less reactive, more grounded, more aware. You stop saying everything that comes to mind. You stop chasing things that don't matter. You start choosing your thoughts with intention. You become more deliberate, more discerning, more disciplined. And not because someone told you to, but because you discovered what matters. That's what writing does. That's why Marcus did it. And that's why you should too. He wanted to be full of love, but free of destructive passion. And that distinction matters more than most people realize. Because love, in its purest form, uplifts. It strengthens. It makes you better, not needier. But when love is distorted by uncontrolled passion, it can become the very thing that weakens us. Marcus Aurelius understood that. He wasn't striving for emotional suppression. He was training for emotional clarity. You see, passion, when left unchecked, consumes. It clouds your judgment. It pulls you out of yourself. The Stoics saw this not as a sign of life, but as a failure of discipline. Not because they were cold or detached, but because they understood how easily the flame of love could turn into a wildfire that destroys. Marcus didn't want to be immune to love. He wanted to love right, with steadiness, with perspective, with strength. That's the rarest kind of love, the kind that doesn't panic when someone pulls away, the kind that doesn't crumble under rejection, the kind that isn't born from hunger but from wholeness. Most of what we call love today is just possession wrapped in poetry. It's desire that demands, affection that negotiates, passion that overwhelms. Marcus didn't want any of that. He wanted something deeper. He wanted a love that could endure disappointment without collapsing, that could exist without constantly seeking validation, that could give freely without losing its center, Because when you lose yourself in someone else, that's not love. That's dependence. And dependence breeds fear. Fear of loss. Fear of abandonment. Fear of not being enough. And fear is the root of so much pain in relationships, not just romantic ones, but in families, friendships, even with colleagues. When your emotions own you, you're not free. And Stoicism, above all, is about inner freedom. Marcus practiced a love that was grounded, measured, still warm, but not chaotic. He understood what Aristotle once wrote: "To love is to will the good of the other." That's it. No possession, no craving, just the desire to see someone flourish, whether they stay or go, whether they return your love or not. That's the kind of love that doesn't destroy you. That's the kind of love that actually gives life to both of you. It's easy to confuse that kind of love with being cold, but it's not coldness, it's strength. The kind of strength that can hold pain without projecting it, that can see clearly even when emotions rise, that can stay rooted in values instead of being yanked around by moods. Destructive passion is love without discipline. It says, "I need you to behave a certain way so I can feel okay." But Stoic love says, "I will love you without conditions because my peace does not depend on your choices." There's a power in that, a freedom. Marcus wanted that freedom. He worked for it every day. When he wrote about temperance and reason, he wasn't shutting himself off. He was building an inner structure that could hold both love and logic without collapsing under either. That balance doesn't just happen, it has to be built. And it's built by examining your impulses, watching how you respond when you're hurt, when you're ignored, when you're tempted to react out of pride or fear or longing. That's when you train. That's when you ask yourself, am I acting from my highest self or from my wounded self? The Stoics weren't against emotion, they were against being ruled by it. Emotional clarity doesn't mean never feeling, it means knowing what you're feeling and choosing how to respond. It means pausing long enough to ask, is this love or is this attachment? Is this compassion or is this control? That pause changes everything. Most people don't pause. They react, they lash out, they cling, they run, and then they call that love. But love, real love, has room for pause, for breath, for thought. It doesn't rush you into madness. It calls you into presence. That's what Marcus was after. And you can feel it in his writing, in how he speaks of others, in how he speaks to himself. He knew that love without control becomes obsession, that compassion without boundaries becomes chaos, and that ungoverned passion, no matter how poetic, ultimately enslaves the one who feels it. So he wrote his way into wisdom. He reminded himself that emotions are signals, not commands, that desire is natural but not always noble, that even love must be examined, purified, brought under the guidance of reason. This wasn't emotional coldness, it was maturity. And maturity is the willingness to love without addiction, to connect without losing yourself, to care deeply and still walk away if walking away is what your values demand. It's rare, but it's possible, and it's worth practicing. Because when your love is clear, when it's not clouded by fear or need or control, you become more trustworthy. You stop manipulating. You stop playing games. You become someone others feel safe with because they know you won't use their affection as leverage. And you feel safer too because you're no longer relying on others to complete you. You've completed yourself. You've built your center. You've done the inner work. That inner work is what makes Stoic love so profound. It's not showy, it's not loud, but it's steady. It's the kind of love that can sit in silence with you and not feel awkward. the kind that doesn't need to be constantly expressed to feel real, the kind that's expressed most in action, in presence, in consistency. We often think of passion as a fire that burns hot, but the Stoics saw a different fire, the one that burns steady, the kind that warms without scorching, that lights your way without blinding you. That's emotional clarity. It's when you can say, "I love you," and mean it, not because you want something from someone, but because you've chosen to offer something of yourself, freely, without strings, without performance. It's when you can walk through heartbreak and not let it harden you. When you can stay open in a world that gives you every reason to shut down. When you can feel deeply but still act wisely. It's not easy. That's why it's rare. But Marcus shows us it's possible. He chose love, but he chose the kind of love that builds, that sharpens, that elevates. Not the kind that drowns you in your own longing, not the kind that erodes your sense of self, but the kind that survives loss, that survives time, that survives even the death of the person you loved. Because the love was real, and real love leaves an imprint that chaos can't erase. So be full of love, but free of destructive passion. Be warm, but clear. Be kind, but rooted. Because the rarest kind of strength is this: to feel everything and still choose wisely. And that's what Marcus was practicing every single day. Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. He writes, not argue about it, not talk about it. Just be. Marcus wasn't interested in appearances. He wasn't looking for a philosophical debate. He was looking for integrity. He wanted to live in alignment, not just speak about it, because he knew what many still forget, that truth isn't proven by eloquence, it's proven by embodiment. How many people preach patience but explode the moment things go wrong? How many people talk about discipline while negotiating every excuse not to show up? We live in a world full of performers, carefully curated personas, motivational words that never touch action. Marcus rejected all of that. His writing is a callback to something simpler, something real, a life where your values are visible not in your slogans, but in your habits, in your reflexes, in how you live when nobody's watching. That's what he meant by be one. One mind, one standard, one way of being in public and in private. Not fractured by mood or approval. Not torn between what you say and what you do, but solid, whole, unified. Because wholeness is strength, and fragmentation, that inner split between your words and your behavior, is a weakness that bleeds into everything. Marcus didn't claim perfection, far from it. He was often writing because he just failed to live up to his own standard. But he didn't defend his mistakes. He observed them. He learned from them. He used them to sharpen his aim. Every entry was a course correction back toward being the person he believed he could be. We all need that. Because it's easy to talk about values when life is easy. It's in hardship that our true nature shows. That's when being one is tested. When someone slanders you, do you react with bitterness or hold to your principle of grace? When you're tempted to lie to avoid consequence, do you bend or stand in truth? When your ego is bruised, do you retaliate or remain composed? You don't have to say a word to answer those questions. Your life answers them for you. Don't explain your philosophy. Embody it. Marcus said that, and it cuts deeper than we often admit. Because words are comfortable. Embodiment is costly. It means sacrifice. It means holding a line when it would be easier to let it slip. It means choosing what's right over what's easy, over and over and over again. That's the work. Not the talking, not the image, but the invisible effort to live as one. One of the deepest forms of peace you can experience is knowing that you are the same person no matter where you are or who you're with. That you're not shifting to fit in, not posturing to be liked, but standing in who you are without needing to broadcast it. That kind of congruence radiates strength, not flashy strength, quiet strength. That's what Marcus cultivated, a life where principle didn't depend on conditions, where dignity wasn't for display, it was a baseline. That didn't mean he never stumbled, but when he did, he didn't hide behind philosophy. He returned to it. Not as theory, as practice. He knew that the moment you separate your values from your behavior, you weaken both. You become split, divided, and a divided person is vulnerable to everything, to peer pressure, to self-doubt, to impulsivity, to the endless chase for approval. That's why he kept coming back to unity, oneness, not as some mystical abstraction, but as practical wholeness, emotional, mental, moral alignment. Carl Jung once wrote, "You are what you do, not what you say you'll do." That's a psychological echo of Stoic wisdom. Jung, like Marcus, understood that our lives are shaped not by what we intend, but by what we repeat. The Stoic path is not an ideology. It's a lived architecture, one that only holds if your actions hold it. So what does that look like day to day? It looks like keeping your promises, even the small ones, especially the small ones, because the way you do anything reflects the way you do everything. It looks like choosing restraint over rage, focus over distraction, purpose over popularity. It looks like being the kind of person your words describe, not just once, but habitually. That's integrity, not perfection, but consistency. Alignment, the refusal to live as two different people. Marcus knew that the danger of philosophical discussion is that it can become theatre. Talking becomes a substitute for action. But the Stoic doesn't aim to sound wise. The Stoic aims to become wise. And wisdom isn't what you say when the spotlight's on. It's how you carry yourself when no one's clapping. To be one is to resist fragmentation, to reject the idea that your work self, your family self, your online self, your alone self can be different people with different standards. That's not flexibility, that's disintegration. And it erodes peace slowly, silently. It breeds inner conflict because part of you always knows when you're out of sync with yourself. That's why this line matters. It calls you back, not to some dramatic reinvention, but to small, courageous alignment. Be honest when it's inconvenient. Be kind when it's undeserved. Be disciplined when no one will notice. Be grounded when life is chaotic. And when you fall short, and you will, don't justify it. Don't rationalize it. Just return. Return to the path, to the standard, to the truth that lives inside you. That's what Marcus did. That's why his words still reach us centuries later, because they weren't marketing, they were reminders. Quiet nudges from a man trying daily to become who he said he wanted to be. You can feel that sincerity in every sentence. There's no preaching, no judgment, just reflection and a fierce commitment to unity. Be one. Not just think it, not just say it. Be it. It's simple. Not easy, but simple. And that simplicity is its brilliance, because in a world constantly pulling you in 100 directions, the invitation to be one is a return to power, to inner stillness, to peace, to the kind of character that doesn't need applause to be whole. So choose unity in thought, in word, in action, not just once, but every time it counts, especially when no one's watching. because that's where your real strength lives. You don't need to switch careers to find meaning. Whatever role you're in, emperor or intern, is the perfect ground for growth. We tend to romanticize meaning as if it's waiting for us in some ideal future we haven't reached yet. But Marcus Aurelius didn't wait. He didn't say, "Once I'm done with wars and politics, then I'll get serious about philosophy." No, he lived it. In the palace, in battle, in meetings, in grief, in stress. He practiced where he stood, because Stoicism isn't a retreat from life, it's a deeper way of living inside it. Philosophy for him wasn't a luxury. It was oxygen. And not because he had the time, but because he made the time. Because he knew the real practice of philosophy happens right in the middle of your responsibilities, not outside them. It's tempting to believe that if we just changed our job or moved to a different city or found a new passion, we'd suddenly unlock fulfillment. But Marcus saw something deeper. Meaning isn't about location, it's about attention. It's about how you choose to see and respond to your life, not where you are in it. You can be a janitor and have more wisdom than a CEO. You can work the night shift and live with more purpose than someone with 5 degrees. Because purpose isn't a title, it's a posture. It's the decision to show up, eyes open, and ask, what kind of person am I becoming in the way I do this work? That's the question that shaped Marcus's life, and it's the one that Stoicism brings to each of us, no matter our profession. It doesn't matter if you're cleaning floors or leading nations. Are you showing up with integrity? Are you practicing patience? Are you refining your thoughts? Are you aligning your actions with your values? That's the Stoic scorecard, and it's the reason why meaning is always within reach. Because meaning isn't about escaping where you are. It's about engaging where you are fully, honestly, and with your whole self. So many people waste years chasing the illusion that they need to find the perfect job in order to be at peace. But Marcus reminds us, peace isn't found in escape. It's found in presence. In bringing your philosophy into every conversation, every responsibility, every challenge. Viktor Frankl, the Austrian psychiatrist who survived the Holocaust, wrote, "Life is never made unbearable by circumstances, but only by lack of meaning and purpose." That echoes the Stoic truth. Meaning isn't passive, it's created, built, forged in the fire of your daily experience. And what better place to practice than the place you already are? The job you complain about. That's the classroom, the co-worker who frustrates you. That's your teacher, the mundane tasks. That's your training ground. And no, you don't have to love it all. Marcus certainly didn't love every part of being emperor. He often spoke about how draining the court could be, how exhausting the politics were. But he didn't let that be an excuse to check out. He leaned in. He brought himself to it. Not a version sculpted by bitterness, but a version refined by discipline. He understood that the only thing worse than a difficult job is a wasted mind inside that job. That's why philosophy wasn't something he did on weekends. It was in the pauses between military reports. It was in the moments before speaking to the Senate. It was in the decisions he made when no one was watching. This is where meaning hides, not in different jobs, but in deeper attention. You don't need to abandon your career to live fully. You need to inhabit your day differently, to treat every task as a chance to embody your principles. That's what Marcus did. That's what Epictetus, the former slave-turned-teacher, did. That's what the Stoics passed down. Not rules for retirement, but tools for living now. When you start to see work not as a barrier to your growth, but as the very arena for it, everything shifts. Your boss's attitude becomes your test of composure. That tedious spreadsheet becomes a lesson in patience. That difficult customer becomes your opportunity to practice presence. This isn't about pretending menial things matter more than they do. It's about recognizing that you matter. And how you choose to handle those menial things reveals who you are becoming. The world doesn't need more people trying to escape their lives. It needs more people showing up for them, fully engaged, deeply grounded, radically responsible. That's what Marcus modeled. That's why we read his private thoughts today, centuries later, because he lived his philosophy in the pressure cooker of real life. You don't have to wear a robe or quote ancient texts to be a philosopher. You just have to decide, my character is my craft. My conduct is my curriculum. Philosophy isn't just for the monastery. It's for the meeting room, the construction site, the kitchen, the call center, the hospital shift at 2 a.m., because that's where life is happening. And if philosophy doesn't meet you there, it's not real philosophy, it's performance. What Stoicism offers isn't an escape from the world, it's a method for living sanely inside it. That's what makes it so practical. It doesn't say, run away from your responsibilities. It says, bring virtue to them. It doesn't say, wait for the perfect job. It says, be excellent in the one you have. And if your situation is unjust or unsustainable, then of course, work to change it. But don't wait to live with purpose. Don't wait to apply discipline, to cultivate character, to lead with wisdom, because those things are available now, and they are yours to practice right where you are, right in this moment. This is why Marcus's meditations are so powerful, because he didn't preach from a place of ease. He was tired, he was overwhelmed, he was losing people he loved. And still he asked himself the hard questions. Still, he tried to show up with virtue. He didn't need a new job. He needed to stay anchored. And maybe that's what you need too. Not a reinvention of your whole life, but a re-engagement with your inner life. The truth is, you bring you wherever you go. So if you're distracted, bitter, unmotivated in one career, that same version of you will show up in the next one. The deeper shift comes from inside, and Stoicism gives you the lens to begin that shift. So the question isn't, what job will give me meaning? It's, how can I bring meaning to the job I already have? That's where power lives. That's where peace begins, not in waiting for the world to align with your expectations, but in choosing to align yourself with what matters, no matter where you are. So, bring your best where you are, with what you have. That's not settling. That's sovereignty. And Marcus Aurelius lived it until his final breath. Marcus knew he'd be forgotten. Think about that. One of the most powerful men in history, ruler of the Roman Empire, commander of armies, guardian of a civilization, looked at his life and saw how small it really was in the grand scheme of time. And instead of running from that fact, he accepted it. He didn't cling to his title. He didn't place his worth in monuments or medals, or whether the history books would remember his name. He simply wanted to be good while he was here. That's the part that hits the hardest. He just wanted to be good, not famous, not praised, not immortalized, just good. That kind of humility from someone in his position is almost impossible to imagine today. We live in a world where people are constantly chasing recognition, followers, likes, legacy. But Marcus turned his attention inward. He focused on his character, not his image, on how he lived, not how he'd be remembered. Because he understood a truth most people miss until it's too late. The real legacy isn't the statue, it's how you treat the person next to you. We spend so much of our energy trying to make an impact, but the deepest impact you'll ever make won't be in headlines or history books. It will be in a quiet moment, a kind word, a helping hand. The way you made someone feel safe. The way you chose compassion over pride. The way you listened when you could have just talked. That's the real mark you leave. Not because it's flashy, but because it's real. Because it ripples. One act of decency spreads. One act of grace plants seeds you may never see grow, but they grow all the same. Marcus could have written about battles and policies and reforms, but what did he write about in Meditations? Kindness, patience, self-restraint, presence. He wrote about how to carry yourself, not how to impress the world. He knew that a statue might survive 1,000 years, but a generous spirit outlives even that, because it lives on in the lives it touches. We talk a lot about legacy, as if it's something we build later, after we've made it. But Marcus reminds us, legacy is now. It's not waiting for you at the end of your career. It's happening in how you treat people today, right now, in the way you answer the phone, in how you handle criticism, in whether you meet people with judgment or with gentleness. He wasn't fooled by the idea that legacy is measured in achievements. He saw that the real measure is in integrity, in how closely your actions match your values, in whether people feel more human, more seen, more valued after being around you, and that's something anyone can leave behind. You don't have to be an emperor, you just have to care. You just have to try. Carl Jung once said, "The least of things with a meaning is worth more in life than the greatest of things without it." Marcus lived that. He didn't measure his days by their grandeur, but by their goodness. He looked for meaning in the small choices, how he greeted someone, how he handled pressure, whether he stayed true to his word. That's what made him powerful, not just the throne, but the discipline behind it. The refusal to let power rot his soul, the commitment to be decent even when no one would have blamed him for being cruel or dismissive or selfish. Because he understood that no title lasts, no monument guarantees respect. All of that crumbles. But kindness leaves a shape in the world that doesn't fade. You don't forget how someone treated you when you were vulnerable. You don't forget the person who stayed calm when others panicked. You don't forget the leader who led with heart, not ego. So Marcus made a choice, not to be remembered, but to be good. And maybe that's the question we should all carry into our day. Am I trying to be remembered, or am I trying to be good? They're not the same. Being remembered can lead to pride, to performance, to ego. Being good leads to presence, to patience, to a kind of steady strength that doesn't need an audience. That's what Marcus practiced, and it's what he left us. A reminder that your real legacy is in how you make people feel, in how you show up, in how well you love, lead, and live. Not later, but now. That's what lasts. That's what matters. And that's what's within your power every single day. No dramatic moves, no massive overhauls, just one good action at a time. That's it. That's how Marcus built his character, and that's how we build ours. Not in grand gestures, not in perfect transformations overnight, but slowly, quietly, repeatedly. It's unglamorous, it's humble, and it's exactly why it works. We live in a world obsessed with speed, quick results, instant change. We're taught to believe that real transformation comes from something loud and flashy. Quitting your job, moving across the world, starting a brand new life in one bold step. But that's not how character is formed. That's not how inner strength is built. Marcus knew that. He didn't try to become a better man by flipping a switch. He did it by choosing, moment after moment, to do the next right thing. It's not exciting, but it's real. And that's what makes it powerful. You wake up, you're tired, you still show up. That's one good action. You get criticized unfairly. You pause instead of lashing out. That's one good action. You're tempted to lie to protect yourself, but you tell the truth. One good action. You're in a hurry and someone needs help. You slow down. You help. One good action. These are not the kind of moves that make headlines, but they make a life. Because each one is a vote, a small affirmation of the kind of person you are becoming. The next right thing is always enough. You don't need to map out your entire future. You don't need to fix your whole life this week. You just need to take the next step well, then the one after that, and the one after that. That's how character compounds. Think about the way Marcus wrote. He didn't write as someone who had arrived. He wrote as someone still on the path. His pages are filled with reminders to himself. Be honest. Be patient. Don't get pulled into drama. Control your thoughts. Return to the present. Not once, not in theory, but every day, again and again. That's the Stoic path. Not brilliance, not spectacle, repetition. Because repetition forms identity. Do it once, and it's just an action. Do it 100 times, and it becomes a habit. Do it 1,000 times, and it becomes who you are. That's how someone becomes calm. That's how someone becomes strong. That's how someone becomes trustworthy. Not all at once, but step by step, day by day, decision by decision. And even when you slip, even when you fall short, that's still part of the process. Marcus slipped too. He got angry, he got distracted, but he didn't quit. He returned, quietly, humbly. He picked up where he left off and started again. That's what matters. Not the perfection of your performance, but the persistence of your effort. Because every time you do the next right thing, even when you don't feel like it, even when it's inconvenient, you deepen the roots of who you are. Carl Jung once wrote, "You are what you do, not what you say you'll do." That's why Marcus didn't just talk about virtue, he tried to live it. Not to impress others, but to align with himself. And the truth is, nobody sees most of these choices. Nobody applauds the quiet moment you resist gossip, or the patience you show when someone is rude, or the time you hold your tongue instead of escalating. But you see it, you feel it, and over time you become it. Those are the real achievements, not the dramatic moments, but the consistent ones. We're told to dream big, and that's fine. But if you want to live with purpose, you don't need a grand dream. You need to do the next good thing and keep doing it. That's what Marcus did, and it's what you can do today, not someday. So start small, stay steady, keep returning, and let the life you're building speak louder than any words ever could. There's something even more important than taking the next right step, returning to it after you've lost your way. We all slip. We all react in ways we regret. We all make promises we break. And when that happens, it's easy to feel like the whole path is ruined, like one failure cancels everything you've done. But that's just your ego talking. That's not the voice of reason, and it's not the voice of the Stoics. Marcus knew this deeply. You can feel it in how he wrote to himself. He didn't journal like a man who had everything figured out. He journaled like someone constantly coming back to center, back to virtue, back to himself. That's why Meditations still speaks to us, because it wasn't about achievement. It was about alignment, again and again. No matter how many times you get it wrong, you can still choose the next right thing. That's the core of Stoic strength, not perfection, but the refusal to abandon your path just because you took a wrong turn. Let's be honest, starting is easy, returning is harder. Anyone can get motivated once. Anyone can follow their principles for a few days. But what happens after a failure, after a meltdown, after a setback that leaves you feeling ashamed? That's the moment that really defines your growth. Because it's not about whether you fell, it's about how you respond to the fall. Most people collapse into guilt, or worse, they pretend it never happened and move on without reflection. But the Stoic doesn't do either. The Stoic returns, quietly, without drama, without a performance, just a quiet, honest course correction. You don't need a full reinvention. You just need to come back to what matters. And you don't need to wait until Monday or next month. You can return now, right now. That's how powerful you are. Because that choice to return is a micro-movement of the soul. It's an act of rebellion against the voice that says you've blown it. It's a statement that says, no, I'm not done. And over time, those small returns become your real foundation. Carl Jung said, "I am not what happened to me, I am what I choose to become." That quote hits different when you realize it's not about grand transformations. It's about the tiny choices that rebuild your alignment moment by moment, especially after you've fallen out of it. Think about it. How do you build trust with a friend? It's not by expecting them to be perfect. It's by watching how they come back after they mess up. Do they admit it? Do they apologize? Do they learn? That's how you build trust with others and with yourself. Every time you return, you're telling yourself, I haven't given up on who I want to be. That voice is stronger than shame, because shame wants you to identify with your worst moment. But Stoicism reminds you, you are not your worst moment. You are who you choose to be after it. And choosing to return again and again is one of the most honest forms of strength there is. The world sees success in streaks, in perfection, in big wins. But the Stoic sees success in resets, in that quiet morning where you feel exhausted but you still sit in silence for 5 minutes, in that rough week where everything went wrong but you still choose not to snap at your partner, in that failure where instead of hiding, you reflect. These are the real wins. They won't go viral, but they'll build a life. Marcus failed. He got angry. He lost patience. He felt overwhelmed. And he wrote about it, not to shame himself, but to stay honest. He knew self-deception is far more dangerous than failure. So he chose awareness. He chose responsibility. He chose to return. And you can too. Let's say you lost your temper today. That doesn't mean you're a lost cause. It means you're human. The Stoic thing isn't to pretend it didn't happen. It's to pause, reflect, ask, why did that happen? What was I reacting to? What can I do next time? That moment of reflection is the return. Or maybe you gave in to a distraction, spent an hour scrolling when you had work to do. Okay, what now? You don't need to beat yourself up. You need to pick the next good action. You need to move not out of guilt, but out of clarity. That's how Marcus trained his mind. He didn't wait for the perfect moment. He didn't get paralyzed by guilt. He focused on what was within his control, now. Seneca said, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." That includes the small restarts, the mental resets you choose each time you break focus and find it again. The way you reset your energy, your effort, your standards. Not to be perfect, but to be intentional. Over time, this becomes a rhythm. Mess up, reset, realign, grow. You start to expect missteps, not as failures, but as part of the training. You stop aiming for flawless days and start aiming for honest ones. You stop defining yourself by your bad moments and start defining yourself by your returns. That is a deeper kind of power. It's quiet, it's invisible, but it's what makes you strong. Because anyone can hold the standard when it's easy. It's holding it again when it's been dropped that builds real character. Marcus practiced this until his final days. He didn't let power distract him from the daily work of returning, of getting back on track, of reflecting and correcting and realigning his actions with his ideals. So the next time you fall short, don't ask, "Did I fail?" Ask, "Am I coming back?" That's what matters. The return is the proof of your strength. The return is the root of your peace. The return is the clearest sign that you're growing, not perfectly, but powerfully. Not with drama, but with discipline. Not with a big moment, but with a quiet decision to begin again and again, until the day your life becomes the result of your returns, not your regrets. And that is more than enough. There's another part no one talks about, and yet it might be the most important of all, the neutral good. The kind of action that's not flashy, not heroic, not dramatic, just quietly right. The kind of thing you do when no one is watching, when no one will thank you, and when no one even knows. But it's what builds your soul. Holding the door without needing acknowledgement, paying a bill on time even if it goes unnoticed, giving someone your full attention when you could be distracted, following through on your word just because you said you would. These aren't achievements the world claps for, but they are the bricks of a strong character. That's what Marcus understood. That's why his teachings never leaned on showmanship. They were grounded in consistency, intention, and truth. We've been taught to chase greatness in big moves, but greatness begins in the tiny ones, the ones that feel like nothing. That's the secret no one sells you. Greatness is boring. It's routine. It's the way you treat someone when you're tired, the way you speak when you have the power to lash out but don't, the way you walk past the temptation to cut corners. That's the real power. And most of the time, it's completely invisible. That's the thing about Stoicism. It doesn't care what others see. It's not a performance. It's a practice. Marcus wasn't trying to look virtuous. He was trying to be it. He wrote to himself as a way to stay on track, not to appear enlightened. And in that honest, unfiltered space, we see the truth. The work of becoming is done quietly, in the small moments, in solitude. The world trains us to chase what gets recognition, but if you live that way, you'll always be ruled by the outside. You'll never feel whole unless someone claps for you. Stoicism flips that. It says, don't live for applause, live in alignment. Do what's right because it's right, and let that be enough. And it is enough. It's more than enough. Because over time, those tiny, unnoticed choices build something lasting. They build someone you can trust, someone you can respect, someone who doesn't need the world to validate them because they're already grounded in what matters. Seneca warned against tying your worth to what others think. He said, "If you live in harmony with nature, you will never be poor. If you live according to what others think, you will never be rich." He wasn't talking about money. He was talking about peace, about self-trust, about the wealth of integrity. Integrity is doing the right thing, especially when no one sees it. And here's the beautiful part. It doesn't take any special talent. Anyone can do this. You don't need to be strong, rich, brilliant, or successful. You just need to show up for your values. And you don't have to do it perfectly. You just have to keep doing it consistently. That's where true strength grows. Not from being loud, but from being steady. And when you live this way, something shifts. You don't need people to notice. You don't feel restless when you're not praised. You start to feel calm because your sense of self is rooted inside, not outside. Marcus didn't write about achieving some grand destiny. He wrote about doing your job, playing your role, fulfilling your duty with honor, whether it was dramatic or not. He knew the real battle was internal, staying honest when it would be easy to deceive, staying kind when it would be easy to harden, staying disciplined when it would be easy to drift. And those choices, they're made in quiet rooms when no one else is around. That's what makes them real. So next time you hold your tongue instead of snapping, that counts. Next time you admit you were wrong, that counts. Next time you resist the pull to gossip or to coast or to cut a corner, that counts. You might not feel a reward in that moment, but you are building something. You are reinforcing the person you want to become. And nothing, no paycheck, no follower count, no external validation, will ever be more fulfilling than that. You are not here to perform. You are here to become. And the becoming happens quietly. It happens in the way you move through the ordinary, in the way you choose dignity over attention, in the way you return to your values even when no one's watching. That's the kind of strength no one can fake, and it's the kind of power no one can take away. You don't need to move mountains to shape your life. You just need to take the next honest step, then the next, then the next. That's how character is built, not with noise, but with presence. That's the quiet path Marcus walked, and now it's yours to walk too. Not everyone chooses it, but if you're here, if you've listened this far, maybe you're one of the few who will, and that matters a lot more than you think. Finally, let's discuss how to calm a racing mind. 3 steps from Stoicism. Have you ever felt that strange moment where everything is silent except your head? No one is shouting, there are no alarms, but there's your mind unleashed, jumping from worry to worry, inventing futures that don't exist, bringing back memories you didn't ask for, and trapping you in thoughts you can't turn off. On the outside, maybe you're sitting looking at the ceiling, but inside it feels like you're in the middle of an electrical storm. If that sounds familiar, I want you to know something. You're not alone. And more importantly, it's not your fault. It's not weakness or lack of strength. Simply, no one taught you how to calm your mind until today, because you don't need to go meditate on a mountaintop, nor leave everything behind to find peace. What you need is direction, real tools, and a new way of understanding what's happening inside you. And that's exactly why you're here. It's no coincidence that you've come across this content. This moment is an opportunity to return to yourself with clarity. Today, I'm going to show you how Stoicism, that philosophy many believe is only for emperors or bearded philosophers, can actually be the key to getting your mind to breathe again, because the Stoics lived in chaos, wars, betrayals, diseases, losses, and still maintained their calm. How did they do it? With 3 simple but incredibly powerful mental movements, tools that you can use too, even if you're working, arguing, or trying to sleep with your head in a mess. This isn't about empty phrases like think positive or live in the present. You've heard that 1,000 times already. Here we're going deeper but clearer. What you're going to learn today is practical, it's direct, and you can apply it right now, because calm is not a distant destination. It's a practice, one you can start right now. Step 1. Stop before you overthink. There's an invisible, microscopic moment that we almost never notice, but that can completely change how we live each day. That moment is right when something happens, something external, a look, a message, news, an emotion, and your mind begins to run on its own, as if someone had pressed a button that activates your entire alarm system. Suddenly, Without realizing it, you're imagining scenarios, fights that never happened, criticisms that no one said, failures that don't yet exist. You're interpreting, assuming, reacting all in seconds, without breathing, without verifying, without giving yourself the opportunity to ask, is what I'm thinking real? Is it necessary? Is it helping me? The Stoics knew this centuries ago. Epictetus, for example, said that we're not affected by what happens to us, but by what we tell ourselves about what happens to us. And Marcus Aurelius put it even clearer. You have power over your mind, not over events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Imagine this scenario because you've probably lived it. You wake up, pick up your phone, and see that someone left your message on read. Immediately, without anyone telling you anything, your head starts. Is he upset? Did I say something wrong? He's surely angry with me. What did I do now? In less than a minute, you already have 10 assumptions, 3 mental fights, and a mini anxiety attack. Do you realize? No one yelled at you, no one insulted you, no one attacked you, but your mind did. And that was because you didn't stop it in time. This step consists of doing something very concrete, something almost physical, putting on a mental break, an internal stop right before giving free rein to automatic interpretation. And how do you do it? Very easy, with practice, yes, but above all with intention. Every time you notice that your mind is starting to race with a thought, an assumption, an interpretation, do this. Take a deep breath and repeat to yourself mentally. This doesn't mean anything yet. I don't have to react. I can observe before deciding. It's as if you let the thought pass without inviting it to stay and live in your head. What happens when you do this isn't magic, but it feels like it is, because that 3-second pause, that decision not to believe the first thing that occurs to you, starts to calm your nervous system, starts to give you a sensation of clarity, of mental space. You stop fighting the invisible, and there begins to be born a calmer mind, because you're no longer trapped by what you think. You're choosing which thoughts are worth your energy and which aren't. I want you to do something today. Today, not tomorrow. Just once. The next time you feel your mind speeding up, when you start imagining the worst, when you start overthinking a situation, when you find yourself trapped in a mental loop, stop, breathe, don't decide anything, don't believe anything, just stop. Count to 3 and observe. That's simple, that powerful. You don't need immediate answers. You don't need to understand everything now. You just need a little space between you and your thought. That space is freedom, and within that freedom begins to flourish the calm you've been seeking all this time. Step 2. Get things out of your head. I'm going to tell you something that maybe you've never been told directly. You're not designed to keep everything in your head. You weren't made to store pending tasks, worries, uncomfortable conversations, tasks you didn't do, what someone told you 3 days ago, doubts you didn't resolve, things about yourself you don't understand, all at the same time. But you do it. We all do. You go through life carrying an invisible backpack where you put every loose thought you don't know where to leave. And of course, there comes a point where your head feels heavy, as if it was saturated with open tabs, just like a browser that can't take any more. Sound familiar? Well, that's not magical anxiety, that's mental accumulation. And this step is the solution, getting things out of your head every day. Yes, that literally. The Stoics did it. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the world in his time, wrote every night, not for someone to read it, not to become famous. He did it to be able to sleep peacefully, to not take all that noise to bed. What he did was observe his day, write what he thought, what he felt, what worried him. And by putting it into words, his mind found order. That practice is over 2,000 years old, and today science has already proven what he knew from experience. Writing your thoughts reduces emotional load, decreases activity in the limbic system, the emotional part of the brain, and activates your prefrontal cortex, the rational part that helps you make better decisions. But you don't have to write pages and pages. You don't need to be Marcus Aurelius or Seneca. You just need 5 minutes, 3 lines, whatever. The important thing is not to let everything keep spinning inside your head. It can be a physical diary, a note on your phone, a WhatsApp voice message you send to yourself. The format doesn't matter. What matters is that you get it out, that you release, that you free yourself. Do it like this. Every night before sleeping, or when you feel you can't take any more, stop and ask yourself, what am I thinking that won't let me be calm? Then write it without filter. However it comes, no one is going to read it. And then ask, can I do something about this right now? If the answer is yes, do it. If it's no, leave it there. Don't repress it. Don't analyze it. Just get it out. Calm doesn't always come from understanding everything. Many times it comes just from making space. And if right now you're thinking, I don't even know what to write, it's because you're too accustomed to thinking without stopping. Give this practice a chance for 3 days, just 3, and you'll see something curious. By writing what you think, you discover things you didn't know you felt. You realize that some things that were distressing you aren't even that big when you see them outside your mind. Because when thoughts are in your head, they feel enormous, but when you take them out and see them from outside, they shrink, lose power, become manageable. So do this for yourself. If you've been carrying weeks with an agitated mind, if you feel there's no inner silence, if even when you're in silence you're still tired, try this. Close the day by taking out of your mind what you don't need to keep. It's like cleaning a room at the end of the day. No one else is going to do it for you, but when you do it, you feel the difference instantly, and your mind can finally rest a little. Step 3. Not everything is for today. One of the most common reasons why your mind feels exhausted, and not just tired, but saturated to the point of collapse, is because you're trying to carry your entire life at the same time. Not just the problem you have this week, but also the end-of-month bills, the mistake you made 3 years ago, what you think might happen in 6 months, pending conversations, decisions you still don't know how to make, things that haven't been resolved and don't even depend on you. All of that is there spinning at once, as if you had 20 tabs open and only one head to process it all. And of course, how is your mind not going to be exhausted if you're treating it as if it were a time machine, forcing it to live in the past, present and future at the same time? Stoicism has a brutally simple answer to this. Focus only on what's yours for today. Only today, because that's the only thing you have in your hands. The rest, yesterday, tomorrow, what hasn't arrived yet or has already gone, only serves to drain your energy, to fill you with noise, to occupy space you could use for what really matters. Marcus Aurelius repeated it like a mantra in his meditations. Don't let the future overwhelm you. You will meet it if it comes with the same tools you have now to face the present. And that's the key. Trusting that you can handle what's for today, only today, the rest you face when it arrives. Think about this. How many times have you stressed about things that haven't even happened? How many times have you relived an old situation that you can no longer change? How many times did you have a free day and instead of enjoying it, you were with your head spinning about everything you should be doing? That's not living, that's surviving with your mind hijacked by time. And the Stoics knew it. When you live trying to solve what doesn't correspond, you lose strength for what is here, now in front of you. This step isn't just mental, it's physical, it's practical. Every morning or every time you feel you're carrying too much, ask yourself this question. What things am I thinking about that aren't for today? And take them out. Write them on paper. Save them for tomorrow. Schedule them if necessary. But don't carry them with you as if they were a mandatory backpack, because they're not. You decide what load you walk with, and if you don't make that filter, your mind swallows everything, as if it had to solve the future before living the present. This step is also an act of humility, of recognizing that you don't have to control everything. You don't have to have all the answers today. You don't have to have your life resolved at this instant. You just have to live this day with attention, with intention, and with calm. Tomorrow is another chapter, and yesterday is already written. The only real thing, the only thing that's yours is this moment. And when your mind understands that, something changes. The volume of noise goes down, pressure eases, air enters more easily because you're no longer overloading it with tasks that don't belong to it. And if this step is difficult for you, if you feel you don't know how to let go of what's not for today, start with one phrase, just one. Say it as a daily reminder. Today, I only take care of what's for today. Write it, carry it in a note, repeat it when your mind wants to get ahead. It's not denial, it's not irresponsibility, it's wisdom, it's order. It's what the Stoics did to survive in the middle of chaos. And if they could maintain calm with wars, betrayals, and plagues, you can start by stopping carrying everything at once. Now that you have the 3 steps, stop automatic thinking. Get out what you carry inside. Let go of what's not for today. What comes next isn't theory. What comes is practice. What comes is calm, because it's not about not thinking, it's about thinking better. With more space, with more direction, and with less weight. And now you know how to do that. Start tonight. Apply just one of the steps if you want, but do it. Your mind doesn't need more information. It needs less load, less noise, more silence, and you can give it that today. You made it to the end, and that already says a lot. Not everyone stays. Not everyone actively seeks calm. Many continue forward with their mind tied in knots, with noise embedded to their bones, thinking, that's life, that there's no other way. But not you. You stayed. And if you stayed, it's because there's a part of you that's already ready for something different, to live with more space inside, to stop reacting automatically, to stop carrying everything, to stop swallowing every thought as if it were absolute truth. Having a calm mind isn't a luxury. It's not something some people have by luck or genetics. It's a daily decision. It's a practice. It's a way of living. And the best of all is that now you already know how to start. You don't need to make big changes or wait for everything to be perfect to have calm. You just need to apply those 3 steps you already know. Stop before overthinking. Get out what you carry inside and let go of what's not for today. Do that, even with just one. And I promise you'll start to feel the difference. Little by little, day after day, your mind will start to breathe differently. It wasn't a coincidence that you ended up reading this to the end. It wasn't. Maybe you found it by chance or pure intuition, but if you're here, it's because your mind was already looking for this and found it. Calm is not found, It's built, and today you already took the first step.